When it comes to being reincarnated into another world, receiving the strongest skills and being very active are what usually happens. However, for the protagonist of the story, it wasn't the case. A kid was casting a stone spell, fixing the broken tile on the floor. Exhausted, the kid managed to finish everything, which made everyone happy. A man approaches the kid telling him that because of what he had done, it would make pedaling much easier. The kid admits to himself that he is not someone who can take down a strong enemy with one hit, and is not even chosen as a hero. However, for the kid, if there are people who are happy about it, then he is fine with it. The kid then turns to the old man, telling him that it was about time for them to head back. Walking beside the kid, the old man couldn't believe that a 6-year-old was the one tasked to maintain the road. The story is about the kind-hearted protagonist who makes the most of their past life's memories to achieve great things. A 35-year-old man named Michio Tsuchida was a normal salary worker and also the kid's previous self. On his way home from work, Tsuchida heard someone scream. Turning around, Tsuchida saw a kid being taken hostage. The hostage taker stated that in 2 minutes he will be able to go to a different world. In order to achieve his goal, the hostage taker plans to offer the kid to Marigus, pleading for his lord to transfer him to his world. Seeing all of it, the mother begged for the little girl to be released. Witnessing the chaos, Tsuchida thought that it was totally bad and wondered what the police were doing. Tsuchida sensed that something bad was about to happen. Whenever Tsuchida feels something bad in the past, it usually comes. Seeing the hostage taking, Tsuchida knows that it is serious. As people who are witnessing just thought how bad the situation is, they could only ask for the hostage taker to let go of the kid. As the man mentioned that there is only a minute left, Tsuchida sensed that something bad was about to take place, so he decided to take action himself. Tsuchida charges at the man and successfully separates the girl from the hostage taker. However, the hostage taker was desperate and still tried to harm the little girl, muttering that it was now time and that he would be free. Tsuchida shields the little girl and pleads to the hostage taker to stop. However, Tsuchida's heroic action led to him getting stabbed in the back. This pissed the man off and he told Tsuchida to not get in his way. As Tsuchida's vision slowly fades away, he sees how the man is being subdued by the officers and is being asked to calm down. The man in response told the officers to let him go and continued to call for Marigus. The little girl who Tsuchida saved was now back in her mother's arms, who was also thanking Tsuchida for saving her daughter's life. Hearing another voice, Tsuchida wonders who it is, and thought if he is hearing a different voice aside from the mother. Hearing another thank you, Tsuchida recognized it as the same voice. A name is being called, telling the person to pull himself together and wake up. Another voice was heard telling the young master to stay focused. The name Cain kept getting called, telling him that he can do it. When the boy finally woke up, a woman was shocked to see that the boy had finally regained consciousness. Confused, the boy wonders who the beautiful woman is. The servants then saw that Cain had finally woken up, which made the butler order the maid to notify Dana right away. Still very much confused, Cain wonders where he is. From what Cain noticed, there are many people wearing clothes and being surrounded by furniture that he has never seen before. Cain felt a sharp pain in his head as he experienced a terrible headache, which was caused by information being flooded into his head. After absorbing all of the information, Cain finally remembers who he is. Cain Sanroze, the 4th son of Viscount Sanroze. 2 weeks have passed since he woke up. Tsuchida reincarnated into a different world and was now living as the boy whose name was Cain. Cain remembered up until he was 5 years old. The woman who Cain first saw was Lydia Sanroze, the first lady of the Sanroze family. Lydia calls Cain's name, asking him if something is wrong and if he is okay. Lydia isn't Cain's real mother, as Cain's real mother, Linnell, had died from illness in place of the Sanroze. Lydia has been taking care of Cain devotedly. Lydia informs Cain how he fell downstairs and almost died. Cain couldn't respond clearly. Moving much closer, Lydia comments how Cain's complexion didn't look bad. With his stomach growling, Cain tells Lydia that he is hungry. Smiling, Lydia mentioned that she could tell. Lydia finds it good timing that she brought some rice porridge with bread. Seeing the food, Cain's eyes glowed and mentioned that it looked delicious. Trying to feed Cain, Lydia orders Cain to open. Feeling embarrassed, Cain tells Lydia that he can eat by himself now. However, Lydia insists on feeding Cain since he has not fully recovered yet, telling Cain to be good and stay still. Cain had no other choice but to comply, opening his mouth. Praising Cain for eating a lot, Lydia notices that after Cain woke up, his personality changed and was now a bit more gentle. Cain used to be more clingy. Hearing this, Cain responded, "Is that so?" while thinking that maybe he is still being distant because he still has Tsuchida's memories. Trying to play it cool, Cain calls Lydia "mother" and hugs her. Cain's face turns red as Lydia tells him how he is such a clingy child. A girl peeks from the doorway asking Lydia if she can come in. The girl is Alice Sanroze, the eldest daughter of the Sanroze family. Alice was told to knock and wait for an answer before opening the door. However, since the door was already open, Lydia mentioned that it's unavoidable today and told Alice to come in. Approaching Cain, Alice asks if Cain was now okay. Alice then tells Cain that he needs to get a good night's sleep. Remembering how Alice often visits Cain in his sleep, Lydia mentions how Alice has been worried about Cain all this time. Embarrassed, Alice asks Lydia why she had to reveal it. Seeing Alice's reaction, Lydia points out that Alice is blushing. Touching Cain's forehead, Alice asks Cain if he is truly fully recovered, and goes ahead, checking Cain to see if he has a fever. Alice was unsure about Cain's temperature. Cain smiles and tells Alice that her hands felt cold, which felt very nice. Cain has 3 older brothers and 1 older sister. Unlike Tsuchida, Cain's siblings are all stunningly beautiful. Cain Sanroze, Cain's father, appeared and told Alice that if she keeps bugging Cain, he won't be able to rest well. Luke then sees how Cain's complexion has improved a lot. Seeing that, Luke believes that Cain will be fine for next week's baptism ceremony. Confused, Cain asked about the baptism ceremony. The capital where Cain lives is small for a viscountcy. It is a town surrounded by walls with a population of around 5,000 people. On average, a viscountcy typically has a population of over 10,000, which means that the current population is half of the average. In Cain's world, when one turns 5, they undergo the baptism ceremony and are granted at least 1 skill by the gods. For the official explanation, those who undergo the baptism would have their individual aptitudes checked. The skill the kids receive would determine their future. For Cain, having one's life being decided by others is kinda nerve-wracking. Everything was different from Cain's past life since Tsuchida's life didn't exactly shine. With Tsuchida ending up transferring to a different world by some chance, he wonders what is going to happen to him moving forward. Although Cain is worried, he still couldn't hide his excitement. Coming to a different world, Cain tells himself how he shouldn't waste it and that he must have fun. When one reincarnates into a different world, they get an infinite item box and other stuff that is similar to that. Being able to dominate with all-element magic and alchemy is the standard template from what Cain guessed. Wondering what he would get, Cain was now looking forward to his baptism. When the day finally came, Cain and his family visited the church. Lydia and Alice were then asked to wait while the rest went in. Lydia hopes that Cain would receive a good skill, while Alice cheers for Cain. Cain was then greeted by the bishop, calling Cain's name and thanking him for coming. The bishop introduces herself as Sistina. Starting the baptismal ceremony, Sistina asks for Cain to hold her hand. Sistina also asked for Cain to close his eyes as she was about to offer a prayer. As Sistina starts her prayer, Cain suddenly heard a voice which he recognized as the one that he heard when he got reincarnated. Cain noticed that he was no longer in his world and saw a woman with wings. Cain asks the woman where he was. The woman responded that he is currently in the divine realm. The woman wanted to thank Cain, which is why she called out to him. The woman introduces herself as the goddess Guardia. Surprised upon hearing the goddess's name, Cain remembered that Guardia is one of the gods of his new world, the goddess who governs the world. Goddess Guardia could tell that Cain has been studying hard. Cain was shocked when he realized that Guardia was reading his mind. Guardia asks Cain if he still remembers his last moments on Earth. Touching his head, Cain responded that his memories are a bit vague but remembers that he died protecting a girl. Guardia thanked Cain for saving the girl and shared that the kid is the vessel for her grandchild. If Cain hadn't protected the child, things would have been very bad. Seeing the goddess smile and thanking him, Cain's only thoughts were how soft the goddess's hands were. Regaining his senses, Cain pulls his hand back and tells Guardia that he is glad that the kid is safe. Since Cain is facing the goddess, he theorizes that what had happened to the child is something that was made possible by the goddess's power. Talking about impossible things that are possible, the goddess admits that the event can be changed with her powers. However, if she were to intervene starting with Earth, a distortion would have occurred in Cain's world as well. For that reason, Goddess Guardia was very much grateful to Cain for protecting both her grandchild's life and the world. Cain didn't mind, as he was just glad to know that his life was able to be of use to the world. Just knowing that his life had meaning, Cain had nothing more to say. The goddess tells Cain that there was no time to do the other task. The goddess summons Cain's status board. Seeing this excites Cain, as it is one of the things that he had always longed for. Reading the board, the goddess saw that Cain is already holding a skill. Cain was asked if he remembered something being passed down when his mother Linnell died. Thinking back, Cain remembers that the hand he was holding was glowing or something. Guardia tells Cain that he is right and points out that he has inherited the recovery magic skill from his mother. Cain finally learns that he gained a skill from his real mother. As a token of gratitude, Guardia wanted to grant Cain 3 skills. As a large machine suddenly appeared, the goddess asked Cain to press the roulette button. Cain recognized the machine as a slot machine. Realizing that he was about to gamble, Cain was caught by surprise. Since they were going with a slot machine, Cain asked if they couldn't freely choose their skills. Guardia pointed out that some reincarnates chose skills that could disrupt the world's balance. which is why they made it random. As a consolation, they were giving Cain 3 skills and asked him to understand. Cain eventually agreed and even thought that Guardia had it tough as well. Cain could only hope that he'd get some cool skills. As the machine spun and stopped, Cain obtained the skills: Earth Magic, Unlimited Magic Power, and Magical Array Magic. However, Cain had no clue about the skills. Thinking how plain it looked, Cain wondered if Earth Magic was strong. Having unlimited power, Cain theorized that he might be able to work the things that he comes up with. When Cain noticed how shocked Guardia was, Guardia jokingly told Cain that her luck stat might not be high enough. Cain mentioned how the skills he got were kind of a dud. Guardia, worried about how things were going, decided to grant Cain her blessing. As the Earth Goddess, Guardia gets a bonus to Earth Magic. Placing her fingers on Cain's forehead, Guardia was able to transfer her minor blessing to Cain. After granting Cain a blessing, Guardia told Cain that if he prays at the church, they'll be able to find Cain. Guardia knew that it would be a difficult task but hoped that Cain would still do it. Guardia also asked Cain to occasionally report on how things were going. Before vanishing, Guardia hoped that Cain's future would be filled with happiness. Before Cain could say anything, he finally returned to the church and was now facing the bishop. After her prayer, the bishop was shocked to see that Cain obtained 3 skills. Furthermore, Cain also received the blessing of Goddess Guardia. Hearing this, Luke was shocked and asked the bishop to repeat it. Although his skills were a bit weak, there was a possibility that Cain's stats were completely off the charts. Eager to see his stats, Cain opened his status board and was shocked to see that all were single digits. Seeing his vitality only at 5, Cain was certain that he would die right away. Cain was starting to worry, wondering what would happen to his strongest life in the other world. Thinking about his skill, Cain realized that Earth Magic was a perfect match for him. Cain called upon his magic, ordering it to follow his will and to prosper, chanting using the words "create play." Cain created an abacus and showed it to his parents. As the two had never seen such a tool before, they were just in awe at how well it was made and how the tool could do arithmetic. Luke and Lydia were very much impressed with Cain, telling him how amazing he was. Cain's earth magic is very useful in creating things or for agriculture. A man then barged into the room telling Dana how amazed he was after seeing the bountiful harvest that came from the field that Cain made with his magic. Cain's magic isn't much on a grand scale. However, this suited his personality. After being reincarnated into another world and ending up being blessed with 3 skills, which is very much considered a cheat, everything was going fine until Cain saw the skills he received. Cain felt an ominous feeling coming from the goddess who blessed him. Thinking about his draw and how terrible they were, Cain immediately could tell that the skills were just a bunch of mundane magic, which also showed that he may have a difficult road ahead of him. Seeing Cain spacing out, his father Luke asked him what was wrong. Regaining his senses, Cain responded that there was no problem. Stepping out of the room, Lydia asked Cain about his skills and what type of skills he obtained. Curious as well, Alice also wanted to know how many skills Cain received. Luke informed the two that Cain was blessed with 2 skills, Earth Magic and Magical Array Magic. Cain also inherited healing magic from his biological mother, Linnell. Since his 3rd skill, Unlimited Magic Power, was hidden, it wasn't visible to Luke and the others. Hearing all of it, Alice was very much happy for Cain, telling Cain how good it was for him to obtain 3 skills. Caught by surprise, Cain could only mutter Alice's name. When Alice mentioned how Cain also received skills from his mother Linnell, it made Cain wonder if Alice also inherited skills from Linnell. Lydia understood what Earth Magic is but admitted that she had no clue what Magical Array Magic is. Luke also had no clue, which made him decide to write a letter to Benjamin and have him look further into it. With Cain receiving the elemental magic, Luke couldn't help but worry. Lydia told Luke not to worry about it and pointed out that they can still investigate it later after they get home. Luke agreed and called Cain's name, telling him that the status board is something not to be shown to the family. Everything that is shown in the status board is private, and having it looked at or taking a look at others is a breach of etiquette. Luke hoped that Cain remembered his words. Cain bowed his head and told his father that he understood in response. Cain learned that his information is a secret even from trusted family members. In normal cases, people show each other's stats and cooperate. No longer dwelling on it, Cain guessed that he would just follow the world's rules. Cain thought that if he were to make friends, he would just decide about it for himself. Cain also gets to decide how to use his skills. Thinking all that made Cain very much excited. Cain told himself that as soon as he got back to the mansion, he would check his skills out, very much eager to start his new life in another world. While checking his status board, Cain saw a note from the goddess Guardia, telling Cain that since he hasn't learned the Magic Manipulate skill yet, Cain's unlimited magic power will be deactivated until he can skillfully manipulate magic. Guardia hoped that Cain would learn the magic manipulation skill quickly to gain access to his other skill. Reading all of it, Cain was truly shocked. Cain believes that Guardia should have had a certain level of authority, and adding to his skills is also the blessing he got from Guardia. Reading his status board, Cain thought that the skills he got are actually quite good. Being resistant to status ailments is considered minor, but for Cain, it is still quite good. The last thing Cain read was the understanding of different world languages. This made Cain wonder if it would allow him to read the text in front of him. Curious, Cain was now eager to study more of it. Cain puts his hands together, sarcastically thanking Guardia for the bonus skill he received. Cain then tells himself that the skills were fine, and that being able to use magic is still very much exciting. Cain wonders what he will be able to do with his magic. Hearing a knock at his door, Cain gave permission to enter. Entering his room are the family butler Randolph and Alice, who is looking for Cain. Randolph informs Cain that Dana is calling for him to the reception room. Cain understands and responds that he will be there shortly. Cain wanted to investigate more about his skills and wondered what the reason was why he is being called. Alice gets in front of Cain's face, taking him by surprise and asking him if he was even listening to her. Pouting, Alice tells Cain not to ignore her anymore. Cain immediately apologizes to his sister for being rude. Alice guesses that Cain got preoccupied with the matter of his skills. The moment they arrived at the mansion, Alice tells Cain that he had shut himself in his room, which gave her a bad feeling. Alice then enjoyingly toys with Cain's cheeks. Alice becomes embarrassed when Randolph reveals that Alice too did the same thing when she first received her skills. Waving her arms around, Alice asks Randolph why he had to reveal such a thing. Alice clarifies that hers was different and that she just wanted to read the rest of the book. Alice explains that at that time, she was late for dinner because she was so absorbed in the book. Hearing everything, Cain thought that his sister was also looking at the skill board until evening. Listening to Alice's explanation, Randolph apologizes for his mistake. Though Alice tries to cover up something she finds embarrassing, Cain already could tell that Randolph knows everything and was just acting like an adult. Changing the topic, Alice informs Cain that since they received a skill from their mother, Linnell, they must treasure the skill. Hearing this, Cain couldn't help but laugh. Annoyed, Alice asks what was so funny. Entering the room, Cain could only think of how childish his sister is. Cain saw how both Lydia and his father shared a serious look and immediately sensed how heavy the atmosphere was. Nervous, Cain was about to ask why he was called, but Luke interrupts him. Luke starts off by telling Cain that the skills received are not that great, which suggests that his future may be tough, and asks for Cain not to be too down. Hearing this, Cain was unsure how to react. Lydia was annoyed at how Luke explained their worries. Luke apologizes, explaining that he got the order wrong. Cain asks why he should be down. In noble society, that includes their own. The skills that Cain received during baptism would shape and determine his future. For people who received combat-related skills, they attend the Knight Academy and join the Knight Orders of the Kingdom or the Territorial Lords. For those who received combat magic skills, they attend the Magician Academy and also join the Knight Orders of the Kingdom or the Territorial Lords. The others who receive political skills generally attend the Royal Academy and become bureaucrats for the Kingdom or the Territorial Lords. However, Luke checked that the earth magic Cain possessed doesn't have any effective magic for attacking, even when its level increases. As for magical array magic, the details about it are still unknown. Summing up his words, Luke calls Cain's name, and though he didn't want to say it to his son, Luke informs Cain that he still has a promising future ahead of him, but it might not be something that he would look forward to. Hearing this, the whole room became silent for Cain. Shocked, Cain never expected that his parents would think of his future as that despairing. Cain admits that he too complained about his skills and has strong emotions toward them, but he still believes that being resourceful is a necessary skill, and that there's no need for Luke and Lydia to be sad about it. Out of nowhere, Lydia comes to Cain, hugging him tightly. Lydia reassures Cain that they won't ever abandon him. Cain observed his surroundings and saw how Lydia, Luke, and their maids looked sad and worried. Cain never expected that everyone would be so worried about him. It wasn't like that in Cain's previous world, and he still didn't want to make his family and acquaintances sad. Cain lifts his chin up and tells his father that he has a request for him. From what Cain knows, earth magic requires the magic control skill to be used. Cain wishes to learn the magic control skill. If Luke knows a way to learn the skill, Cain hopes that his father would share such information with him. If his father does not know about it, Cain asks for his father's permission to enter the library at home. As he plans to investigate it himself, Cain reassures his parents that he is fine, as he is certain that he would be able to do all sorts of things once he masters earth magic. If his plans don't work out, Cain guessed that they can just use his earth magic to create a statue. If Cain were to master the recovery magic that he inherited from his mother, Lionel, Cain believes that he would be able to heal the people of their territory. Telling both his parents that everything is fine, he asked that they not worry about him that much. Both Lydia and Luke were speechless at first, but then approached Cain, agreeing to everything he had said. Luke gained hope that earth magic may be able to help his son shape a better future. Lydia also agrees, telling Cain that as parents, they can't give up. Hugging Cain tightly, Lydia promises Cain that they will work together. Luke became excited and was very eager to write a letter to Benjamin, ordering him to come home for the next break. Knowing Benjamin, Luke was certain that Benjamin knows how to acquire the magic control skill. Luke also plans to have Benjamin investigate the magical array magic skill at the Magic Academy. Cain agrees to everything Luke said. Cain's speech had a bit of momentum, pointing out that the world isn't just about battling. Seeing how nice everyone is, this made Cain want to work hard even more to avoid making them sad. Cain thinks positively, pointing out how he is still 5 years old, and by that world's standards, he still has another 50 years to go, which he plans to enjoy. Thinking about Benjamin, whom his father keeps mentioning, Cain only knows that Benjamin is attending the Magic Academy now. After that, Cain would come to know that using magic isn't that sweet with Benjamin as his teacher. Meanwhile, a student was being told to focus, pointing out that the student's attitude won't help him defeat a single goblin. The student muttered how he didn't hear anything about a surprise magic test. Upon calling for the next student, a long-haired fellow came forward and froze the examination tool. That person is the one who opened up the possibilities of magical array magic. Others were shocked, thinking that what they saw must be a lie. Others who recognized the person expected no less from him, since he was known to be the greatest prodigy of the Magic Academy ever since it was founded. That person was none other than Benjamin Sanroze. 6 months had passed by since Cain told himself that he would do his best using his own skills. The Sanroze family maid tells Cain that he didn't need to rush so much. Cain could no longer keep still because the day he has been waiting for has finally arrived. It was the day that his big brother Benjamin would be returning. Cain received an order from his father that he is forbidden from using magic until he masters magic control. Luke was worried that if Cain would use magic without learning it properly, things may go haywire and would end up with Cain losing his magic. Luke and Cain made an agreement that he would learn magic control once Benjamin returns. Cain never thought that Benjamin wouldn't be back until the New Year's break. Finally seeing Benjamin, Cain immediately approached him and welcomed him first. Benjamin interacts with Alice and Cain, telling them how much they've grown. Behind Cain, Randolph appears and welcomes him. Cain in response tells Randolph that he is now home, and asks Randolph if he still can't drop the young master title. Randolph responds that he will not until Benjamin comes of age. Randolph then informs Benjamin that both Luke and Lydia are in the parlor room waiting for him. Benjamin understands and immediately went and saw his parents. Meanwhile, Randolph is also guiding both Cain and Alice to the parlor room. From what Cain observes, Benjamin seemed to be very capable. Benjamin has apparently become an instructor at the age of 14. It is said to be a feat that is first in the history of the Magic Academy. Seeing Benjamin's return, both Luke and Lydia welcome him back. Benjamin was then asked how his journey was, and if he's managing school all right, as well as the status of his research. Staring at Benjamin, Cain couldn't believe how mature Benjamin is despite being 14. Cain even thought that Benjamin is more level-headed than him, who's already lived so much in the previous life. Luke changes his tone and tells Benjamin that he has a request for him. Luke hopes that Benjamin would help Cain acquire magical manipulation while he is still staying. Luke shares that Cain has both earth and restoration magic, and that magic manipulation is necessary. Luke also shares how Cain is very eager to start using magic, revealing how Cain has been trying to keep in shape while waiting for Benjamin. Cain was very happy when Benjamin responded that he would help out. However, he was left confused when Benjamin stared at him, smirking. The next morning, Benjamin tells Cain that before they start, he wants Cain to do something for him. Benjamin asks Cain if the skills he gained during his baptism are only magical array, earth magic, and restoration magic. Cain wanted to be honest with his older brother that he still has another skill called infinite mana, but was worried that it may complicate things more. Cain felt conflicted in revealing his hidden ability. In the end, Cain didn't reveal the infinite mana skill and told Benjamin that he is correct. Benjamin understands and told Cain that it is originally a taboo for one to ask about the numerical value of stats. However, since he will be the one teaching Cain, Benjamin tells him that it is important and wants for Cain to be honest and share his stats with him. When Benjamin asks Cain how much mana he has, Cain thought at first that since it is his brother asking, it would be alright to reveal such information. When Cain mentioned that his mana is 1,800, Benjamin asks for Cain to repeat it as he may have misheard him. When Cain repeats that it is 1,800, Benjamin was in total disbelief since Cain's mana is more than the predicted times, and that even he only has 320. Compared to Benjamin's mana, Cain's is about 6 times that. Hearing that, Benjamin realized that he has to change the way he teaches. Benjamin then tells Cain that he will be using an item while he is in training. After asking Cain to show his arm, Benjamin then places an item on Cain's wrist and orders him to keep it on until he learns how to control earth magic. After asking Benjamin what the item was, Cain was caught by surprise when he suddenly felt that something was being sucked out of him. Benjamin reminds Cain to not take the item off and explains that the item is a magic absorber, which he himself developed. The device is normally used to prevent magical criminals from using magic as it drains all the wearer's magic power. The special version Cain is using can be set to leave the wearer's magic power remaining. The device will drain Cain's magic power until it reaches 10. Noticing the stone glowing, Cain tells Benjamin about it. Benjamin in response tells Cain that it is good, as it hinted that Cain's power is now at 10. Checking the item himself, Benjamin confirms that 1,790 was deducted. After telling Cain that they will now begin with their lesson, Benjamin wants them to start with the method for acquiring magic control, which has 4 stages. The 4 stages are focus, circulation, release, and sustain. For concentration, Benjamin orders for Cain to imagine gathering all of his mana on his lower abdomen. Placing his hands on his abdomen, Cain asks if he was doing it right. As Cain tries to gather his mana, he forces himself to concentrate. Cain then notices that his abdomen was starting to feel warm. Seeing this, Benjamin did not expect that Cain would achieve it on his first try. Benjamin then asks Cain if he felt something changed. Confused, Cain asked what it was. Benjamin asked if there was a problem, to which Cain responded that he felt warmth under his hands, but it was now gone. Benjamin then orders Cain to try keeping the warmth going even when he is not focusing on it. After their training, Cain spent his days literally soaked in training. 3 days have passed and Cain was now able to maintain the warmth in his abdomen. Cain was amazed at his improvement and shares with Benjamin that he finally managed to keep the warmth from dispersing even when he is no longer focusing. As soon as Benjamin tells Cain that he has passed, Cain immediately sits on the floor, exhausted from the training. Cain was so exhausted that he compared it to when he once worked 30 days straight. Cain was shocked when Benjamin tells him that they will now be moving on to the next step. When Cain calls for his big brother, Benjamin asks what the problem was, to which Cain responds that his body is stiff and tense, not allowing him to move that much. Benjamin asks Cain if he wanted to call it a day, pointing out that whatever Cain's decision is was fine with him. Benjamin reminds Cain that he won't be able to use magic unless he learns magic control, which is why he is around. Benjamin then warns Cain that he won't be able to use magic for about a year and asks if he was fine with it. Hearing this, Cain wondered if his brother is the type that has a demon-like personality. For Cain's next lesson, which was circulation, Benjamin first orders him to focus. Cain closes his eyes, maintaining focus. Cain had finally gotten used to focusing his mana, which was now very easy for him. Cain was thinking how he may actually be a bit talented and that what he is doing was now just a piece of cake. Benjamin tells Cain that he is not doing bad, and then orders Cain to move the magic that he has gathered onto his chest. Benjamin gave Cain a tip and told him to imagine his magic slowly rising to his chest. Cain understands and follows Benjamin's orders. As Cain tells himself to rise, he was shocked when he realized that he couldn't move it at all. 10 minutes later, Cain finally gave up as he wasn't able to move the magic at all. Benjamin guesses that doing it all at once was still difficult for Cain. Benjamin decides to help Cain a bit and orders him to start focusing again. Cain starts focusing again, gathering the magic and forming it into a ball. Benjamin tells Cain that it might hurt a bit but asks him to just bear with it. Cain was surprised when he noticed that the magic was now moving. However, Cain also didn't expect that he would feel so much pain. Cain tells Benjamin that he is now hurting. Benjamin explains that it is the process of expanding the narrow path for magic to flow through, so that magic can pass through more easily. In expanding the magic pathway, Benjamin tells Cain that it is only normal that it would hurt. Cain lost balance and ended up stumbling again. Benjamin praises Cain for bearing with it and doing a good job. Benjamin explains that what they did was circulation, and then orders Cain to move the magic to his lower abdomen, chest, head, chest, left hand, right foot, left foot, and back to his lower abdomen. If Cain were to do all of that, then he would pass. Hearing all that, Cain couldn't help but tear up and thought that he was correct, that his brother was exactly a demon. 5 days after the intense pain incident, Benjamin notices that Cain has been occasionally giving him a wary glance. Benjamin guesses that he was just a bit too harsh in their last session. However, they are also running out of time. Cain approaches Benjamin, telling him that he has finally achieved the task for circulation. Shocked, Benjamin asks Cain if he has actually achieved circulation. Cain responds that he did, and asks for Benjamin to watch as he proceeds to demonstrate circulation. When Cain brought the magic power he had moved back down to his lower abdomen, he noticed that the magic power had become a little more concentrated. By circulating magic power, Cain confirms it with Benjamin that he is able to make it bigger. Benjamin could only laugh and tell his brother how amazing he is. With the habit of overtime work from his salaryman days, even when Benjamin wasn't around, Cain ended up practicing anyway. Cain was just glad that his practice turned out for the better. Moving to their next lesson, which is release, Benjamin asks for Cain to bring his palms together in front of his chest and make a circle with them. Cain would then have to circulate the magic power between his palms and that he must keep his palms pressed tightly together. Cain notices something and tells Benjamin that his magic power can't move because it is hitting something at Benjamin's right hand. Benjamin tells Cain that he will give him 3 options. First is Benjamin would assist Cain like how he did during circulation. Next is for Cain to make the magic power a bit smaller and try again. Lastly is for Cain to make the magic power bigger and try again. When Benjamin asks Cain which one he prefers, Cain becomes frightened as he notices that his brother was once again turning into a demon. Regardless of what Cain chooses, he knows that it will be painful. Cain chooses option 1, which Benjamin confirms with Cain that he is choosing the first option. Benjamin places his hands behind Cain and tells him that they will be doing circulation again. With his hands together, Cain senses Benjamin's magic flowing into him. The form of the magic was starting to become thin and pointed. As soon as the magic reached Cain's palm, he noticed something. Cain informs Benjamin that he is now hurting. As Cain bears the pain, his hands won't come off since there's an external force being applied. Benjamin tells Cain that the magic power has entered Cain's left hand, telling him that he has done a good job. Benjamin informs Cain that he will keep circulating. After their grueling training, both finally stopped and are exhausted. Benjamin tells Cain that what they did is releasing the magic outside the body, which is the 3rd stage called release. Cain can't help but tear up from the pain, muttering Benjamin's name. Benjamin asks Cain if he had said something, to which Cain immediately told his brother that he had said nothing. Benjamin asks Cain to try making a circle with his hands slightly apart and circulating it. Since the magic has passed through once, Benjamin was certain that the process should now be a lot easier. After 2 hours, Cain was now able to perform the release. Cain then calls for Benjamin, telling him that he is now able to do it even without holding hands. Despite the painful process, Cain couldn't deny that the process works since he was now able to release right away. For their next lesson, which is maintenance, Benjamin warns Cain that the last stage is very dangerous and that they will be doing their training outside the castle walls. Benjamin advises Cain to not lose his concentration halfway through. If Cain were to feel that he is about to lose concentration, Benjamin orders him to raise both his hands diagonally forward and up. Hearing this, Cain wonders why he had to diagonally forward his hands and up. Resuming their training, Benjamin again instructs Cain to start with circulation and sufficiently hone his magic power, then move on to release. As Cain follows Benjamin's instructions, he is then told by Benjamin to stop the magic between both hands and form it into a sphere. Looking at Cain's progress, Benjamin praises him. Along with the magic power that continues to be released, Cain can feel the magic power being drained from his body. Unable to control the magic further, Cain thought that the situation was about to get bad. Cain finally lost focus and ended up releasing the magic onto the ground. Witnessing Cain's mistake, Benjamin hits Cain's head and is reminded that he had to raise his hands diagonally forward and up when he loses concentration. Cain couldn't believe that he was the one who made such a mess. Benjamin tells Cain that if he hadn't followed his instructions, Cain would have been seriously injured. Benjamin lectures Cain, telling him that magic isn't a toy and that he has to take responsibility when using it. Hearing all that, Cain realized that he was getting a bit carried away. Since coming to the other world and being able to use magic, Cain had become curious about magic and wanted to use it for whatever purpose. However, in reality, if Cain had made just one misstep, it would have been very dangerous. Cain asks Benjamin to teach him again and promises to follow his instructions properly. Cain would no longer make any excuses or even complain, and asks for Benjamin to teach him again. Seeing Cain's determined look, Benjamin smiles and agrees to teach him again. The two then started from the beginning. After 4 days, Cain had finally acquired magic manipulation. Looking at his status board, Cain confirms that the magic manipulation has been added. Cain cheers as he could now cast magic. Benjamin also congratulates Cain and points out how Cain was able to increase his skills so quickly, a feat that Benjamin believes is quite rare. Cain bows to Benjamin, thanking his big brother for training him. Benjamin then informs Cain that if he can do the training, he will be able to attack without using spells. Benjamin proceeds to demonstrate a destructive magic and directs it towards the ground. After making contact, Benjamin's magic blast ended up creating a huge hole. Cain was in shock, wondering if Benjamin is from the world of Dragon Ball or something. Realizing how powerful his brother is, Cain thought that he absolutely shouldn't disobey him. 2 days after the new year, Benjamin went back to the academy. Cain experienced an intense training period, but later felt accomplished when he finally was able to use magic control. Excited, Cain decides that moving forward, he will be using magic to the limit of his magical power. Cain then remembers that he was still using the magic absorber tool Benjamin left him. Cain remembers that if he didn't take the tool off, he would run out of magic right away. After removing the magic tool, Cain then used the method he learned from his big brother Benjamin, starting with focus, then circulate and maintain, following the instructions and casting the spell, Stone Bullet. Cain was very much impressed after seeing stones appearing out of nowhere. Being able to use magic, Cain could no longer hide his excitement. Actually, being able to perform magic got Cain pumped up. Cain also discovered that not only could he use stone, he can also use magic to make a hole. After testing out his stone creation magic, Cain uses his magic again, but now to create a hole. Casting his spell, Cain was able to carve out a circular shape onto the ground. However, he was very disappointed since it didn't look much like a hole. Cain stumbles as he is running out of magical energy. Cain was left with only 20 magical energy after being drained by the magic absorber. After casting 2 spells, Cain realized that 20 was just not enough to perform spells and not get exhausted. The lack of magical energy resulted because Cain had been training with Benjamin until the year ended. The training still proved very beneficial as Cain was able to level up. Cain woke up and realized that he had fallen asleep, wondering if it was already evening. Cain was shocked when he sensed that he was getting more magic than usual. Cain's magic had fully recovered after removing the magic absorber. Staring at his status board, Cain remembers that he was only using 1% of his magic up until now, and even thought that he may have gotten used to the feeling of having low magical energy. Cain then excitedly went out to start off with his magic practice. However, Lydia saw Cain about to step out and asked where he was headed to. Lydia reminded Cain that it was almost dinner time, and also asked Cain where he was during lunch. Cain thought that he was in trouble, unable to explain clearly his reason. Cain knows that if he were to tell the real reason, that he had been practicing magic instead of studying, he would certainly make Lydia mad. Cain ends up lying, telling Lydia that he had been studying the alphabet with Alice. Exhausted from his study session, Cain thought of taking a walk or something. Hearing this, Lydia was shocked and understood that taking a break was necessary, and apologized to Cain for doubting him. Cain, in response, told Lydia that he didn't mind. Inside Cain's head, he felt apologetic for feeling guilty. Returning to his training ground, Cain notices that the hole he made was still there and has not returned to normal even after some time has passed. Cain thought that the spell he cast had a continuous water effect, and that he had to be careful or someone might fall and get hurt. Thinking of a way to erase the hole he created, Cain finally thought of one after thinking about it for some time. Trying the magic out, Cain chanted delete, which then covered the hole with more dirt. Cain was very much amazed seeing how the whole thing had disappeared. Noticing his hand tremble, Cain realized that the amount of magic used in covering the hole was twice the amount when he made the hole. To remove his magic, Cain wonders if it would take twice the magic used for the magic he wanted to erase. This made Cain realize that such spells can't be easily used unless one is a magician that has a lot of magic. However, Cain got even more excited and wanted to verify his theories. Cain starts using his magic, creating multiple holes on the ground. After creating the holes, Cain then went ahead and covered them using the delete spell. Though Cain felt drained, he thought that earth magic may actually be very good. The next day, Cain's eyes shone brightly, wanting to do more magic training. When Alice saw Cain going outside, she tells Cain how lucky he is for being able to go outside every day, unlike her who is stuck with studying. As Alice sighs, not wanting to do math anymore, Lydia sees and approaches her. Lydia then cheers Alice up, telling her good luck studying with Cain again. Alice was confused, wondering why Lydia mentioned Cain. Lydia tells Alice that she knows Cain is studying alongside her. However, Alice responds, pointing out that Cain is always outside. Hearing this, the two were left dumbfounded. In his magic session, Cain started out with stone. After casting the stone spell, Cain was able to manifest a square-shaped stone, which he was caught by surprise. Looking at the stone, Cain had thought that it would just be a regular stone. However, the stone came out in a block-like form. This ignited Cain's curiosity, wanting to do more research about earth magic. After casting stone spells multiple times, Cain created a pile of blocked stones. With the stone spell, Cain felt like he had become a human stone manufacturing machine. After summarizing his test results so far, Cain finds it a success. Seeing his status board, Cain thought that earth magic is very useful. Cheering himself up, Cain was about to train even harder when Lydia called out his name. To Cain's surprise, he saw both Lydia and Alice together. Lydia asks Cain if he had been outside the whole time. Lydia tells Cain that she already knows the truth from Alice and how Cain had lied about studying. Alice also didn't find it very fair that only Cain could go outside and play. As Lydia drags Cain back, Cain tries to lie again to Lydia, telling her that he had also been studying magic. Before Cain knew it, he was already in front of the instructor. Sitting beside the instructor and Alice, Cain thought that with the ability to understand foreign world languages, he could read everything and understand the meaning, but because of that, it becomes a task of endlessly writing characters which he already knows. Cain felt like a 35-year-old doing a workbook meant for 6-year-olds. Despite having all sorts of things like that, it had already been 6 months since Benjamin returned. As a result of Cain's continuous training, his magic control is now level 2. Cain's earth magic had leveled up to 2 as well. When Cain also learned magic control, the unlimited magic power skill had become active. As a bonus, Cain also acquired the avoid studying skill. Checking his status board, Cain finally understood his skills. This ignited Cain's curiosity again, wanting to learn other magic spells that he has gained. From what Cain could tell in his status board, he gained 3 new spells. After gaining the Earth Wall, Cain now plans on using it as a target for his stone spell. For the other 2 spells, Cain was uncertain and pointed out that many people would consider earth magic to be a dud. Remembering his parents' words, Cain decides to just not think about it and would proceed in practicing using the Earth Wall. After casting Earth Wall, Cain then used his stone bullets and targeted the wall. Seeing how sturdy the wall is after being hit by 1 stone, it made Cain want to test the wall more by checking how many stones it can withstand before breaking. Cain continued to cast stone bullets until he finally broke the Earth Wall, crumbling after the 10th stone bullet hit. Cain was impressed, commenting how the Earth Wall got a decent amount of durability. A man approached Cain asking him if he was practicing magic again. Gardy praises Cain for working really hard. Cain smiles, calling Gardy's name. Gardy is the gardener and coachman for the Sanroze household. Gardy is a 35-year-old giant of a man with a scar above his left eye, and is also missing an arm. Gardy had apparently lost his arm due to injuries sustained during previous monster extermination. After the unfortunate event, Gardy was then hired by the Sanroze household. Even with 1 arm, Gardy skillfully handles the carriage. Gardy is also tasked with managing the vegetable garden and flower beds, showing very high ability. Although Gardy tends to be perceived as someone intimidating, he is actually a very kind man. When Cain asked Gardy if there was anything wrong, Gardy responded that he was just thinking of planting some sweet potatoes soon since winter is approaching. Gardy shares his idea with Cain in making a field specifically just for sweet potatoes. Cain thought about sweet potatoes and how delicious they are, especially when roasted, which gives a more sweet flavor. Sweet potatoes are a precious source of sweetness in Cain's world, where white foods are scarce, similar to sweet potatoes on Earth. Gardy then says his goodbye to Cain, to which Cain responds good luck. Looking at the crumbled Earth Wall, Cain remembers that he had to clean the mess up. Using delete, Cain easily disposed of the broken Earth Wall. With his mess now settled, Cain turns and saw Gardy plowing the garden. From what Cain observed, the soil in the field that Gardy's making looked pretty hard. Cain also noticed that there were lots of weeds and stones scattered around. Cain could only think how Gardy was doing quite a tough job. Staring at his status board and the skills shown, Cain calls Gardy and asks if he could help in making the field. Confused, Gardy wanted to say something, but Cain pleaded to help, sharing that he has an earth magic he would like to try out. Confused, Gardy confirms with Cain about the magic the young boy wanted to try out, and asks what the magic exactly was. Cain asks Gardy how big he plans on making the new sweet potato field. After thinking about it, Gardy used the tool to show Cain how big the field he plans on making. From what Cain estimates, the field is the same size as a badminton court. Cain then asks Gardy to stand back a bit. Focusing his magic, Cain then used his skill Earth Dig. After manipulating the soil, Gardy checked the soil and noticed that it had become soft. Gardy asked Cain if what he did was earth magic and expressed how surprised he truly is. Cain was able to confirm that his Earth Dig was perfect for the field. Earth Dig tills the soil and makes it soft. Proud of his work, Cain admits that he could only do small scale for the time being. But when his level goes up, he may be able to do hectares worth of land. Seeing how his magic is able to help Gardy, Cain decides to continue in making the soil soft. After repeatedly using Earth Dig, both Cain and Gardy were impressed at how nice the soil looked. With Cain's part done, Cain checked the soil and was amazed by Cain's work, which Gardy himself admitted that he may have to plow the soil for 10 days straight just to finish. Gardy grabs Cain's hands, thanking him for his help. However, Cain was just confused as to why Gardy was thanking him. Gardy explained that it took him a long time to till the soil even with 1 arm. Thanks to Cain's earth magic, he can use the saved time to do other work. Receiving a thank you for such work, Cain couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Gardy stood up, telling Cain that he will now fetch the seed potatoes. Looking at the other crops, Cain realized that farming is tough in this new world as well. Cain only hopes that his earth magic can make tilling the fields a bit easier. Gardy then returns, informing Cain that he has brought the seed potatoes. When Gardy was about to plant a potato, Cain was shocked and asked Gardy if he was going to plant the potatoes as is. Cain also asked Gardy if he didn't have to make the potatoes into seedlings first. Confused, Gardy explained that they don't plant from seedlings, as they plant the potatoes as tubers. Cain realized that the knowledge and technique for crops are completely different from Earth. If one does not plant the sweet potatoes from seedlings, the harvest won't be very good. When Cain was in junior high school tech, his teacher taught him all about plants, making him wonder if his teacher now is doing well. Cain then asked Gardy if he could spare some of the seed tubers. Cain explained that he wanted to grow a sweet potato field as well. Gardy didn't mind and told Cain to make the field beside the one they had created, reassuring Cain that he would take care of the trouble. In response, Cain thanked Gardy. Staring at the sweet potatoes, Cain wonders what he should do about planters for growing seedlings since he does not see anything suitable around the area. Opening his status board, Cain wonders if he can make something from his spells. When Cain saw something in his status board, he immediately thought that it might be usable. Excited, Cain wanted to give it a try right away. Casting the spell, Follow My Will and Form It, Cain then manifests his clay spell. With help from his imagination, Cain was able to form an object from clay. Seeing his work, Cain was very much pleased. With his work not being that bad, Cain realized that his create clay can be used for a lot of things. Cain wonders if he is able to make tableware or something the next time he uses create clay. Several days passed by and Cain was surprised to see the potatoes sprouting. Gardy praises Cain as the seed potatoes he planted have sprouted. Meanwhile, Gardy's field has sparse germination, which Cain confirms that it is. Cain remembered his teacher once said that planting sweet potatoes from seed of potatoes has a low germination rate and doesn't increase the yield. Cain was fairly certain that it was what his teacher said. Gardy then asked Cain if he too should plant the seedlings. In response, Cain thanked Gardy for his help, but asked for him to wait for a bit as he will have to make a ridge. Confused, Gardy asked Cain what a ridge is. Finding it hard to explain, Cain tells Gardy that he will just explain it after he makes it. Gardy understands and just follows Cain's lead. In Cain's first task, he would have to till the field. Using Earth Dig, Cain tills the soil. Planning to make the furrows properly, Cain then used his whole spell and was able to make 5 lines that are suited for sweet potato seeds planting. Cain was very excited as he was able to create the ridges. Cain explained to Gardy that the raised soil is called a ridge. This improves drainage and gets a lot of sunlight. The soil temperature rises, which helps crops grow better. The knowledge came as a surprise to Gardy. With his high school teacher saying the same thing, Cain wanted to express his great respect towards his teacher. Gardy praised Cain for having such information as he never knew that such method even existed. Excited, Gardy asks Cain where he acquired such information. Cain responded that the skill of earth magic taught him. Hearing this, Gardy has become a fan of earth magic, thinking how versatile it is. Meanwhile, Cain couldn't look Gardy in his eyes, knowing that he flat out lied. However, Cain can't deny that his earth magic has actually been useful. While studying with Alice, Cain was very eager to try using earth magic for many other things as well. The instructor notices that Alice was having a problem and realized that it was about another arithmetic problem. Seeing Alice struggle with a slightly complex 2-digit problem, the instructor suggests that they try breaking the problem down step by step and calculate. Both Cain and the instructor were surprised when Alice mentioned that she can do single-digit addition and subtraction just fine. Seeing her sister struggle with 2-digit calculation, Cain believes that if one can do a single-digit calculation, then they would eventually learn a 2-digit calculation if they just try hard. Cain then thought of something and wondered if there's a tool like an abacus in his world. Cain was certain that if they had one, then it would be very useful. An abacus can be used even in the world without electricity. Cain could not hide his emotion, which was painted by his face, eager to make the abacus after class. Outside, Cain first tackled the shape of the abacus. In Cain's previous life, he used abacus a lot and is pretty knowledgeable about it. Unfortunately, such talent cannot be included in his resume before. However, thanks to that, Cain now has a much more clear image. Cain also realized that it was his first time making something so complex with clay. Thinking of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, Cain finally got the image that he wanted. Chanting his spell, Cain created an abacus from clay. Seeing his work, Cain was very impressed and even noticed how it makes a rattling sound. The moment Cain tried to use the abacus, it broke down. Cain was in shock after breaking the abacus he made. Down on his knees, Cain guessed that his image of the item's strength just wasn't enough. Creating another one, Cain plans to image the abacus being as hard as iron. Changing the spell, create clay. Cain was once again surprised as the abacus he now created looked like it wouldn't break right away. Testing out the abacus, Cain felt like he was hitting a glockenspiel. For someone like Cain who's into acrobatics, he wasn't expecting to have fun with it, and thought about how it is like a musical instrument. However, for a beginner, Cain believed that it would be difficult for them to use it. Cain thought that the abacus would require some trial and error, but was still excited to test the tool out. Raising the abacus, Cain states how he has made something that's really satisfying. Cain notices that the beads are a bit hard to slide and the sound isn't that bothersome. However, what's most important to Cain is that the item wouldn't break. Now obtaining the abacus, Cain was happy by the thought that he would be able to help Alice out. Taking out both number 8 and number 2, Cain realized that the abacus is really quite hard to use, but still can be used as a good reference. In Cain's mind, his next plan is to think about how he came up with the item, and the possibility that an abacus had already been invented in his new world. Cain thought how it was such a pity that Benjamin wasn't present to see his item. For things like that, Cain thought that the person he should reach out to is Lydia. Passing his father's room, Cain saw Luke looked a bit distressed. Luke was now facing a major problem, wondering how he can pay off their family's debt. Hearing about a debt, Cain wonders what it was about. A maid appeared behind Cain and asked him what was the problem, and what he was doing outside his father's room. Cain explained that he was looking for Lydia. When the maid mentioned that Lydia is in the library, Cain thanked the maid in response. Heading towards the library, Cain was thinking about how startled he was. Thinking about the debt that Luke mentioned, Cain wondered if it is actually true. If the debt is true, Cain wonders if it would cause their family to be torn apart. Cain was thinking of how it had only been 6 years since he started living with everyone, and he had no intentions of being separated from them. Cain didn't want to see everyone's sad faces, but he also didn't know what to do. All Cain has is earth magic and knowledge from his past life. Determined, Cain thought that if he could make use of his abilities, then he would be able to save everyone. In order to make the country bigger and more prosperous, Cain was planning to do his best for a territorial reform. The Sanroze family's financial difficulties were revealed, which made Cain decide to reform the territory. This plan is something that Cain thought would be able to help his family even a little. However, Cain was worried, wondering where he should start. If Cain hesitates, it might be too late for him. Thinking of what he can do for the time being, Cain decides to go to Lydia and ask her about the abacus. Cain sees an opened room and remembers that it was the room for archives. Since Cain is still young, he has not yet been given permission to enter. Cain heard that their ancestors collected all sorts of things, which meant that they may have more books than a typical Viscount family. Cain calls for Lydia, asking her if he can go inside the room. Hearing Cain's voice, Lydia responds that she's in the middle of something and asks him to just enter. Inside the room, Cain immediately notices the smell of old leather and paper through the air. Cain makes his presence known and mentioned his surprise to see that their archive room has many books. Lydia guesses that it was Cain's first time visiting the archive room and thought of talking to Luke about giving Cain permission to enter the room next time. Since Cain had just recently learned how to read, Lydia guesses that Cain must have wanted to read a book. Cain was in awe as he immediately noticed that the atmosphere was different from usual and wondered if it was because of him. Cain then tells Lydia that there's something he wanted for her to see. Before Cain could show the abacus, his attention was drawn to one of the books on the shelf. When Cain asked what the book was, Lydia turned and asked which book Cain meant. Cain realized that he may have spoken his thoughts out loud. Cain then points to the glowing book on the top shelf on the right. Pointing at the book, Lydia asked Cain if he was by chance talking about the book near her. After receiving the book from Lydia, Cain immediately opens it and sees that the contents of the book are about rice cultivation methods and how to make seasonings like miso, soy sauce, mirin, ketchup, and sauce. The book also discusses using magic to recreate electrical appliances. Cain read the title of the book, The Hero's Tome, and wondered what it was. Hearing this, Lydia was shocked and asked Cain if he could actually read that book. Cain was also surprised by Lydia's reaction and asked her what she meant. Cain realized that he had committed another mistake after taking a look much closer and saw that the book was written in Japanese. Lydia immediately told the maid to call for Luke and Randolph. As Cain found out later, the book was written by his ancestor 12 generations ago. The hero book has been passed down in the Sanroze family for a very long time. It also seemed that their descendants lost the ability to read the hero's writing at some point in time. Cain thought if the reason was something he is very familiar with. Cain thought of explaining that the writing system was from the native language of his past life. However, Cain knows that such an explanation would not work. Thinking of ways to explain, Cain thought how it was very difficult to cover up his mistake. After that incident, Cain was allowed to use the archive room, and Randolph had taught him how to use it. Cain now immerses himself in the hero book. Reading the book, Cain realized that the contents were about a reincarnator just like him. The story is about a Japanese person who was apparently summoned to another world to defeat monsters. The protagonist somehow made peace with the king of the demons, had a child, and lived happily ever after. However, the man's longing for Japan never faded, and he left a book summarizing things that would be useful for a reincarnator like Cain, who had found the book. The hero of the story is also the one who wrote the book. Cain never had thought that there were other reincarnators besides him. What surprises him more is that one of his ancestors is a reincarnator. The contents were shocking for Cain, but still hold valuable information. Since there's a lot of it in the book, Cain plans on checking it thoroughly. However, Cain plans on doing something first. Too focused on the book, Cain wasn't able to bring up the abacus thing last time. Cain also plans on making use of the book while he is at it. Cain calls for his father and mother. Worried, Lydia asks Cain what was wrong. Holding the abacus, Cain tells his parents that he wanted for them to see something. When Lydia asks what it is, Cain hands the abacus over. Seeing how Lydia holds the abacus, Cain wonders if Soroban is even a thing in his new world. Luke describes the abacus as an item that has lots of balls, asking what it's used for. Cain holds the abacus and shares it with Luke, explaining that it is a tool that's useful for doing arithmetic. Confused, Luke asks what arithmetic is. Cain first explained the use for the beads on top, representing first the number 5 and then continuing to the next one. Hearing the explanation, both Luke and Lydia were amazed by Cain's tool. With the use of Cain's tool, Luke is certain that the calculations will be done quickly with less chance of error. When Lydia asked if Randolph was around, Randolph appeared and asked if Lydia or Luke called for him. Luke shows the abacus to Randolph and asks him to look at it. After Cain handed the abacus over, Randolph shared how he had never seen such a tool in his whole life. Hearing that comment from Randolph made Cain happy, as he was able to confirm that such a device has not existed ever in their world. Randolph asks Cain how he was able to manage to create the device. With Randolph now present, Cain knows that having a 6-year-old be familiar with an intricate device like an abacus would not be normal. Cain is certain that explaining all sorts of things being pointed out is going to be a hassle. Cain ended up coming up with an explanation, telling everyone that it was written in the hero's tome, even though it actually wasn't written. One thing also is that Cain has not yet finished reading the book. Shocked, Lydia assumed that by being able to read the book, Cain was able to create something from nothing. However, Cain clarifies that it was not the case, and that there were pictures drawn in the book. Cain used his earth magic just like it showed, and was able to make it. Cain also explained that the numbers were written in the language of the country, which helped Cain figure out how to use it. Cain shares his surprise in learning that the arithmetic they learned in class could be used in such an easy-to-understand way. Thinking about giving the abacus to Alice, Cain is certain that Alice would be pretty delighted. Realizing that Cain was the inventor and the only person who could make such a tool, Luke turns to Randolph, to which Randolph then asks Cain how many of the abacus he could make in a day. Cain explained that the tool requires soil, but creating the abacus can still work with the same material is okay. If Cain were to work hard, he could make 100 or even 200 a day. Hearing this, Randolph couldn't help but be amazed, asking Cain if he didn't mind making some now. After giving Cain a plate full of soil, Cain then starts creating the abacus and chants his create clay spell. Seeing how Cain is able to make the tool with magic, the three present were astonished by him. Lydia finds it very wonderful and hugs Cain tightly. Luke also shared how surprised he is. Randolph tells Luke that the abacus might possibly be the means to restore the Sanroze family, to which Luke agrees. Pleased with Cain's invention, Lydia pats Cain's head. Luke tells Cain that he has one request from him. Luke clarifies that what he is about to ask isn't necessary, but still asks for his son to make a few abacuses every day. Cain was thinking how he didn't mind, but was curious as to why his father needed so many of them. Cain responds, agreeing to his father's request. Happy, Luke pats Cain's head, thanking him for the help. With just like that, Cain spent every afternoon making abacuses before he knew it. Engrossed in making abacuses, Cain ended up completing 2,000 of them. Cain too finds it strange, as he was now making a large number of abacuses when his intention in the first place was to make it for his big sister. Luke's plan was now taking the abacus to the Commerce Guild. If his plan were to go well, then he was certain that he would get royalties. Cain was surprised, as he thought if his father could really do that. Luke laughs as he assumes that what he had said is something that Cain still wouldn't understand. Luke then orders Randolph to take care of the arrangements, to which Randolph understood and immediately followed orders. And so the abacuses Cain made were brought to the Commerce Guild. At first, the Commerce Guild receptionist listened to the story warily, but eventually he was beaming with excitement. The abacus, which was successfully registered, now had the additional task of creating a new nobles chapter. It is unavoidable since it's for when similar products are made. Cain informed the receptionist that if a similar product were to come out, it would likely cause dispute over which one is authentic. In response, the receptionist tells Cain that the one making the judgment is Hermes, the god of all occupations. Thinking about a god making judgment, Cain guessed that no one could really complain. A few days later, Cain was recognized as the original developer of the abacus. Both Luke and Lydia were extremely happy after hearing such wonderful news. But what surprised Cain even more was that Randolph sold a single abacus for 3 gold coins. In their world, there are copper, silver, gold, and platinum coins, each denomination being 100 times the previous one. If one considers a copper coin to be worth 10 yen, then 1 gold coin is equivalent to 100,000 yen. Apparently, the total sales of abacuses amounted to 6,000 gold coins. This meant that the Sanroze family had amounted to 600 million yen in sales. Cain thought that the number was just too huge to comprehend, expecting less from Randolph, as Cain knew that he could really count on him as a manager. Looking at his father, Cain thought that their household worries were finally resolved. Luke informs Randolph that their urgent financial problems are now resolved. Having more breathing room, Luke tells Randolph that they will need to repair the castle walls and maintain the roads before winter. Randolph agrees and shares his thoughts on carefully using the remaining money they have. Hearing that, Cain realized that they had a lot of other things to take care of. Seeing his father thinking about the people, Cain guessed that his actions are just normal for someone who is a lord. Cain then calls for his father, asking if they should make more abacuses, reassuring them that he can still do more. Shocked, Luke asks Cain if he could really make more. This eventually led to Cain spending several more days making an additional 1,000 abacuses. Cain visits his father in his room, informing him that the abacuses were completed a while ago. Pleased to hear the news, Luke thanked Cain for his help. Luke pointed out that he really received a huge help, and thanks to Cain, the people of the domain didn't have to go hungry. Luke was very proud to have Cain as his son, patting Cain on his head. Smiling brightly, Cain was glad that the earth magic was actually useful to people. Luke tells Cain that he is the one who deserves credit more. After consulting with Lydia, they decided that even a child should receive a reward. Luke then asks Cain if there was something that he wanted. Cain thought that if it were his past life, he'd want to share the profits. However, now that he is just a 6-year-old, even if he had money, he still wouldn't be able to use it. Cain didn't really have anything particular that he wanted. Since it was still a rare opportunity, Cain felt like it would be a waste if he didn't ask for something. Cain realized that he may still have not shaken off his poor mentality from his past life. After a minute of thinking, Cain tells his father that he just wanted to eat 2 sweet potatoes when they're roasted next time. Confused, Luke asks Cain if that is really all that he wanted. When Cain responds that it is, Luke agrees and tells Cain that they will have some roasted sweet potatoes next time. Excited, Cain now has something that he was looking forward to. Eager to eat the delicious sweet potatoes, Cain was now more determined in developing their territory even further. As the sun shone brightly, the maids still felt sleepy, always finding the early shift tough since no one was awake yet aside from them. To the maids' surprise, they did not expect to see Cain up and awake, greeting them with a good morning. Flustered, both maids greeted Cain back and pointed out how it was still quite early for Cain to be awake. Cain explained that he would just head out for a run and would be back by breakfast. After Cain said goodbye, the maids were left confused since Cain was only 6 years old and was already quite active. Seeing Cain being so serious, the maids thought that they too had to be proper. Quickly and efficiently, the maids were working hard like never before. Seeing the maids' behavior, Randolph thought that the maids were quite motivated. Cain took immediate action for the purpose of reforming the territory. After his warm-up exercise, Cain's first step was to build up his physical strength. Cain and everyone else decided to work on leveling up their respective skills. Firstly, it was by waking up at 6 in the morning and building up physical strength. Next was attending classes with Alice until lunch. After lunch, Cain practiced his earth magic and magic control at the training grounds. For the healing magic that Cain inherited from his biological mother, he aimed to practice it 20 times a day repetitively. After 3 months passed by, Cain checked his status board and was very happy to see everyone's levels had increased. Earth magic and healing magic had gained additional items. When Cain looked at his earth magic, he saw that it now had sand, mud, and dry. Looking at the new features of his earth magic, Cain wondered how he should use those. Thinking about it, Cain checked his healing magic real quick and saw that it now gave an area recovery. Cain found his heal more useful now as it could heal more people at once. Cain still thought how it was best that nobody got hurt in the first place. With the healing magic he inherited from his mother Linnell, Cain wished to use it to save many people. With Cain's current pace, he was certain that he would be able to keep learning more useful magic. Before studying in the library, Cain wondered if he should go check out the sweet potato field. Cain saw Gardy in the field and called his name. After approaching Gardy, Cain praised him for doing some good work and asked him how the sweet potatoes were doing. Gardy responded, telling Cain that the sweet potatoes were doing great. The field Gardy planted was also doing well. But what surprised Gardy more was Cain's field that looked even more amazing. The sweet potatoes planted from the ridges and seedlings were amazing, and it seemed like almost all of them had taken root. Gardy pointed to his field, sharing how it was taking root much better than usual, but still not as good as Cain's field. Cain told Gardy that if they tried planting in his field from seedlings next year, there was a possibility that it might become even more amazing. Gardy agreed and wanted to grow a lot of sweet potatoes and surprise themselves even more. Just thinking about the sweet potatoes piling up, both Cain and Gardy couldn't help but giggle. Picking up a sack, Gardy told Cain that he was now heading back to the mansion and asked Cain if he planned to stay and watch the fields a bit longer. Cain responded that he would not, and that he would join Gardy back to the mansion as well. After their task, Gardy suggested that they relax after cleaning off the dirt, to which Cain responded that it sounded good to him. All of a sudden, Gardy suddenly stopped and his face was painted in horror. Noticing Gardy's reaction, Cain asked what was wrong. When Cain looked at where Gardy was looking, he was surprised to see the road in a mess. Gardy stated how the road leading to the mansion had become a mess because of the rain the day before yesterday. Gardy told Cain that they would need to put down some sand before the head of the Sanroze family came back. If ruts formed, the carriage might not be able to pass. Gardy apologizes to Cain and tells him that he would have to go around back and grab some sand. Gardy then asks Cain if he could make it back on his own. Cain understands and was about to head on first when he thought of using the new earth magic he just learned on the matter. Cain asks Gardy to wait and also asks him to get a board that can level the ground, something similar to a spatula. After explaining to Gardy the type of tool he needed, Gardy then left in a hurry. Now dealing with the road issue, Cain first touches the road and immediately feels how cold it is. Cain tells himself that he can handle the cold and that it is all for the sake of helping everyone. Cain then used one of his new skill features, mud. In just a few seconds, the road now looked leveled. Seeing how nice it looked, Cain wonders if it worked. Coincidentally, Gardy returns and apologizes for keeping Cain waiting. Cain welcomes Gardy back and tells him to use the magic to flatten out the road that has gotten muddy. Gardy was amazed and asked Cain if he was the one who made the road muddy. If the road gets muddy, the earth gets softer and easier to level out. Using a flattening tool, Gardy was very much impressed at how easy it was to level out the earth, much faster than usual. Hearing this, Cain thought it was good. After finishing leveling the road, Gardy stated that all that is left for them to do is to dry it out. Cain tells Gardy to wait, as he still has some of his new magic that he has learned. Chanting his spell, dry, in just seconds the muddy road had dried out. Seeing the road, Gardy was very much impressed at how fast the mud dried. Upon further inspection, Gardy became even more impressed after seeing how perfectly flat it is. With the newly fixed road, horse-drawn carriages could pass through without any problems. Cain pointed out how it still felt a bit weird seeing that only one part of the road is flat. Cain suggests to Gardy in just flattening everything out before his father, Luke, returns. Liking Cain's suggestion, Gardy agrees to it. The two work together to flatten the path to the mansion, and before even an hour had passed, the two had finished flattening out the whole road. Cain thanked Gardy as they were able to clean up the road in no time. Gardy also thanked Cain and his earth magic. Pointing out how they've gotten themselves more dirty, Gardy suggests that they go to the well together and have themselves cleaned up. Hearing that, Cain responded how it sounded good. Walking on their way to the well, Cain wonders if his father will notice, as he is a little excited. Knowing how his father usually reads documents even inside the carriage, Cain guessed that his father won't notice their work at all. Back at his study, Cain heard his name being called and asked if he was around. Responding to the call, Cain tells that he is inside and asks what is wrong. Luke wanted to confirm with Cain if he was the one who flattened out the path that leads to the mansion. Cain explained that Gardy and he were the ones who flattened out the ruts, so they wouldn't be noticeable. However, since Luke knew about the road, Cain asked if they did a bad thing. Luke tells Cain that it's alright and apologizes for startling him, reassuring Cain that it's not a problem. Luke pointed out to Cain that he did the opposite. After passing through the mansion's gate, the vibrations completely stopped, which surprised Luke and made him wonder what was going on. Luke has never seen a road so flat and beautiful before. Luke praises Cain for doing a great job, after which he then hands him his allowance. After receiving a coin, Cain thanked his father as he felt really happy for it. Cain tells his father that he will split the reward with Gardy. Luke tells Cain that he is really kind and that he would give Gardy a separate share as well, which Luke suggests that Cain use the reward for himself. Hearing that, Cain thanked his father. Later that day, Gardy thanked Cain as Gardy mentioned that he received a special reward. After several days, Cain was once again shocked to see the road become a mess of a puddle again. Even though Cain and Gardy worked so hard in fixing the road, Cain was certain that if they flattened the road like before, it would be the same again once it rains. Cain asks himself if there are better ways to fix the problem. Cain starts thinking of how people in the old days fixed the problem. An idea finally struck Cain, and he thought of just making a cobblestone road. Cain thought that it would be like old Europe, like the one he saw in a book about Earth. Since the material is just stone and dirt, Cain was certain that he could make it possible with his earth magic. Finally able to make the decision, Cain runs back to his home as he plans to write it down on paper and summarize. In Cain's cobblestone plan, he first uses stone magic to create a large amount of stones to pave the road. For the next step, he muddies the road with the mud spell to a depth of 10 centimeters. The third step is drying the mud and pointing out that the surface should be a little rough and not smooth. In the fourth step, Cain would require for the stones to not touch each other but to be spaced about 1 centimeter apart. Picking up the paper, Cain thought that what he is about to do is the least amount of effort. Thinking further, Cain realized that if he does it all at once, it would be very difficult. With that, Cain guessed he should try it out somewhere first. Cain came up with another idea of testing it out around the well. Cain ran off wanting Randolph's opinion about his plan. Cain also needed to ask Gardy for help regarding the matter and guessed that he may have to tell Gardy all about it. After handing Randolph the paper, Cain asked how it was. After confirming that Cain wrote down the plan, Cain was kind of hesitant in answering but confirmed to Randolph that he is the one who wrote it down. Randolph could see that Cain has the qualities of a feudal lord. Looking at Randolph's face, Cain could only think of how amazing his smile was. As Cain was about to express what he was feeling, he stopped as Randolph responded that he understands. Randolph tells Cain to go around the well tomorrow, as he would have to consult with Luke about the matter. Excited, Cain thanked Randolph, to which Randolph responded that it was not a problem. However, if it is according to the content, Randolph estimates that it would take around 5 days to finish all the paths in the mansion. Cain expected no less from Randolph, thinking how amazing Randolph is for being able to point it out. Cain tells Randolph that he too has the same estimated time. Cain suggests that if they increase the number of people a bit more, he is certain that they can reduce the schedule. Randolph agrees with Cain, pointing out how their policy is not to have a surplus of labor costs. Cain responds, telling Randolph that he would do his best to get a little better bit by bit. Randolph calls for Cain, sharing his thoughts of how Cain has become quite strong. Since getting injured and being bedridden, Randolph thought about how Cain had become a totally different person. Hearing this, Cain starts to worry, wondering if Randolph has finally noticed something. Bowing his head, Randolph shares how they are overjoyed at Cain's growth. Muttering Randolph's name, Cain promises to make the stone paving a success. Leaving first, Cain was now very much determined in doing his best. Cain calls for Gardy all over the place. Gardy and Cain came to the well behind the mansion, and the reason was to pave the area around the well with stones as planned. Firstly, Cain tells Gardy to mark out the area that they will be paving with stones. Using a stick, Cain drew their mark, and after finishing, he tells Gardy that they will be doing the stones. With his magic, Cain created perfectly shaped stones and piled them all together. After finishing 300 of them, Cain asks Gardy if the amount would be enough. Next in Cain's plan is turning the area around the well to mud. Cain then asks Gardy if he can arrange the stones, to which Gardy happily complies. And so Cain and Gardy repeated the process of turning the area to mud and arranging the stones. After getting about a quarter of the way done, Cain then used his dry spell for the final touches. Seeing their creation, Gardy becomes excited and tells Cain that what they did was a huge success. Finally seeing the stone pavement for himself, Gardy could now see that even if the ground gets flooded, the stones prevent puddles from forming. The water would then get absorbed into the soil through the gaps, which Gardy thought was a great idea. However, Cain finds the shapes a bit bothersome as some parts are irregularly shaped. The arrangement of the stones or the unevenness of the soil bothered Cain a lot. Gardy, who had knowledge about the roadwork, tells Cain that he didn't even notice the unevenness. From Gardy's perspective, it seemed that Cain can only cover a narrow area in a day. When paving the path in front of the mansion with stones, they might need to come up with some kind of plan. Cain agrees with Gardy and suggests that they discuss it further with Randolph. Cain also tells Gardy that when the time comes, he wants him to join in their meetings as well, to which Gardy responds that he would accept the invitation. Lydia arrives, as she finally finds Cain. Surprised, Cain was not expecting to see Lydia at the back of the mansion. Lydia explains that since Cain didn't come for lunch, she went out looking for him. Lydia becomes annoyed seeing how Cain is once again covered in mud. Wiping Cain with her handkerchief, Lydia orders Cain to quickly get changed. Cain tells Lydia that her clothes would get dirty as well if she continues trying to clean him up. However, Lydia just told Cain to not mind her. Seeing Cain doing work and getting dirty, Lydia wishes to discuss the matter with Luke. Cain remains silent, thinking that he had made Lydia angry again. However, it was all according to Cain's plan. Gardy, on the other hand, also remained silent as he made a promise with Cain. After lunch, Gardy and Cain headed back to the well and resumed the work of paving the area around the well with stones. As Cain stood up, he saw Luke and Randolph approaching them. Cain could already guess that his stepmother Lydia mentioned the stone paving. This made Cain more determined to finish their work to the very end. Exhausted, both Cain and Gardy were finally finished in making the stone pavements. Gardy praises Cain for finishing the task. Cain tells Gardy that it was a good thing that they were able to finish the task before dinner time. Seeing Luke and Randolph's expressions at his work, Cain wondered if the presentation went well. Returning to his home, Cain was summoned. Luke then tells Cain that he would officially ask Cain to pave the path to the mansion with stones. Cain looked very confused and clarified if he is being given a job. Luke already heard the explanation from Randolph and finds the stone paving quite amazing. With that, Luke thought that they won't have to worry about mud anymore even on rainy days. Cain thanked Luke for the praise. Cain becomes excited as he finds the job assigned a new opportunity for him to practice earth magic even more. After paving the path to the mansion, Luke wanted to assign another task to Cain, but then thought that it might be too much for him to ask. Randolph suggests to Luke to talk about the matter to Cain first. Luke had the same thoughts, but he was still worried since the plan he had in mind was pretty reckless. After a back-and-forth whispering, it made Cain even more curious. Driven by curiosity, Cain spoke up and wanted to at least hear his father's proposal. Cain was shocked when Luke shared his thoughts with him, wanting for Cain to pave the main street of the town with stone. What added more pressure is that Cain must finish it within 2 months. From what Cain could recall, the area he would be working with is about 1 kilometer long. At that rate, Cain was certain that it would take him about a year to finish. Luke's budget for the task is around 200 gold coins. Hearing this hastening decision, Cain asked if something was about to happen in 2 months' time. Luke responds that there isn't, and states that the plan he proposed is not really realistic. Having the path to the mansion paved is already enough for Luke, and he tells Randolph that they may have to give up on the idea of having the main street be paved. Although the idea is unrealistic, Cain still saw it as his great opportunity. Cain knows that rebuilding the main street is a large project, and yet he calls for his father and agrees in doing it. Cain's response surprised Luke and made him want Cain to understand the load work he'd have to do. Cain already has something in mind and thinks that if they increase the number of people, he is certain that the task is possible. Cain promises to come up with a plan to finish the stone pavement quickly. Listening to Cain, Luke eventually agrees and decides to leave the matter to Cain. Luke reminds Cain to not overdo the work. Cain agreed and then left the room. Having a big job entrusted to him, Cain became really excited and was determined to have it done. Luke then orders Randolph to cooperate with Cain, to which Randolph responded that he would. The next day, Cain's enthusiasm was slowly being changed by the pressure of the task. A huge amount of money is involved, as well as the number of people. Cain wonders if he could even succeed with the job. Peeking into the room, Cain was puzzled seeing Alice inside and wondered if there were classes for the day. The instructor was very pleased and told Alice that she was correct. The instructor was happy to see Alice grasping the technique after using the abacus. Staring at his big sister, Cain thought how it felt great seeing someone smile because of his magic. Cain wanted the people of the domain to be happy just like his big sister. Cain then tells himself that he shouldn't be discouraged and is now even more determined to make his plan succeed. Cain enters the room apologizing for having the two wait. Cain explained yesterday's work to Randolph while drawing it out. Gardy also shared with Cain about the tough parts of yesterday's work. Cain added things like how it allows them to line the stones up straight. Randolph shares his thoughts and believes that it would be tough to finish the task in 2 months unless they have assigned a pretty large number of people. Randolph then points out that 70% of the premise relies on Cain's magic. As Randolph was about to say something else, Cain interrupts him and reassures Randolph that it is fine. Although lining up the stones is tough, Cain plans to make it easy using his magic. However, Randolph in response tells Cain that the matter is not that simple. The mood became dampened after Cain faced the hard reality. Gardy spoke up and admitted to Cain that he does not understand magic. Since Cain is using magic to make stones and turning earth to mud while the rest of them line them up, Gardy asks Cain if he can directly change the earth to stone with magic instead. This idea surprised Cain and he thought that it was a really great one. To begin with, magic is all about the image, and if Cain could solidify the image before using magic, then he is certain that he would be able to do it. Cain praises Gardy for giving him such a bright idea. Wanting to try it out right away, Cain wanted to practice it outside first, since it would be bad if they fail right away. Cain wanted to start by practicing on a small scale and gradually expand it. Cain then asks for Gardy to draw him a few squares for him, to which Gardy agrees. In the meantime, Cain has to prepare the magic he is about to use. Focusing on circulation, Cain thought that with the range he was given, he needed 81 stones and assumed that it would need 10 meters between each stone. To be safe, Cain plans to circulate about 100 magic powers, including what's needed for control. Since it is a first for Cain to circulate a large amount of magic power at once, he is having a little difficulty in gaining control over it. As Cain continues to focus, he then puts his palms onto the ground and then chants, "Follow my will and take form, stone." With his magic going to the ground and forming all stones, both Gardy and Randolph were just speechless after seeing Cain's work. From Cain's observation, he was able to somehow turn it into stones, but there are still gaps. For Cain's first try, Randolph tells Cain that it was a wonderful result. However, Cain was not pleased since the stone's unevenness isn't consistent, and the gaps between the stones aren't consistent as well, making them not pretty to look at. Cain wonders how he could fix such a problem. Randolph suggests to Cain to draw lines to make it easier to visualize or something similar. Hearing that, Cain thought that it was a great idea. After Gardy lays out the outline, Cain uses his stone magic again and was very pleased with the result, as he could see that there are no longer any gaps. Cain wondered if it was because it's easier to visualize with the lines, but Cain then notices that the area where the lines are curved is not lined up neatly and is distorted. Hearing Cain encounter another problem, Gardy tells himself that as someone who has no knowledge about magic, he remembers that multiple companions of his who could use magic all chanted the same magic and caused similar phenomena. However, there was no one like Cain who could alter the magic. Cain came up with another idea, planning on using a board as a ruler to draw a straight line. Thinking that the idea might be good, Cain then took out a board and put it on the ground. No matter the situation, Cain and the others never stopped being resourceful and imaginative, which eventually led them to find a new path. Seeing Cain, Gardy couldn't deny how amazing of a person he is serving. Believing in the saying "third time is a charm," Cain casts his stone spell. Meanwhile, Luke asks Randolph if the path to the mansion is done already. Randolph responds that it is, and that they are currently at the final stage of adjustment. Randolph really wanted for Luke to see the final output of the stone pavement. Cain was surprised to see his father. When Luke asked what they were doing, Cain explained that he was about to pave the area with stone cobbles, and asked for his father to just watch. Chanting the spell, "Follow my stones and shape them stone," Cain proceeds to say the enchantment multiple times until he finishes filling the outlines with stones. Seeing the final work, Cain was very pleased that they were able to succeed. Randolph then tells Luke that if they were to assign the ridiculous task to Cain, he may be able to pull it off. Now Cain's next task is paving the main street. The citizens were surprised to see the feudal lord's children walking around. Alice tells Cain that he can't be apart from her because he would get lost right away. Listening to Alice, Cain could only laugh. Today, Cain had to come for a preliminary inspection for the Higashitami North plan on Main Street. Cain actually wanted to visit the place together with Gardy and Randolph. Alice tells Cain that he will be the only one who would get special treatment, and mentioned that she too would like to go to Main Street. Luke was surprised and asked Alice if she was listening. Alice confronts her father, pointing out how she has been studying in her room every day, and finds it unfair that only Cain gets to go to town. Not wanting to argue with his daughter, Luke eventually agrees for Alice to come along. Cain thought that if he continues to agree with whatever Alice says, then they won't be able to marry her off. Arriving at the market, Cain immediately notices the stench that is like a mix of trash and food. Since everyone is acting normal, Cain guesses that it is how the people experience their place every day. Cain then asks Randolph if the information they have about the width of the main street is correct. Randolph responds that it is, but as they head towards the castle gate, it would gradually widen with each curve. This would eventually reach 8 meters. By making it narrower as they go further in from the castle gate, it has the effect of slowing down invaders' advance, and also makes it easier to retreat towards the castle gate, giving it 2 effects. Randolph also stated that the main street slopes gently down towards the castle gate, which totaled to a length of 1 kilometer. Hearing this, Cain could only comment how long the path is. With the width of the road, Cain believes that it won't be finished in just a day or 2 either. If they close it off, Cain was certain that it would cause problems for the daily lives of the people in the territory. Cain guesses that they won't be able to treat the main road project the same as the road in front of the mansion. Cain wanted to think of ways to solve the problem back at the castle, but he then came up with an idea. Cain wanted to make a scale model of the town, which puzzled Randolph and Gardy after hearing it. Gardy asks Cain if it was really necessary for their project. Cain tells Gardy that it is necessary, stating that having one and not having one are completely different. Cain asks Randolph if he has an accurate map of the Main Street Road, or survey results, or something similar. Cain also asked Randolph if he can introduce him to someone who knows the layout of the town in detail. Randolph understands and tells everyone that he would go back first to make adjustments and then call the person in charge. Cain was grateful towards Randolph, thanking him for the help. In the meantime, Cain makes sure to observe the town carefully. Cain, along with Gardy and Alice, roamed around town enjoying themselves. When Randolph returned, Cain thanked him for picking them up by carriage and told Randolph that he owed him one. Randolph tells Cain that what he did was just nothing, and that the person in charge should be arriving soon. A woman then appeared and greeted Cain, introducing herself as the Maintenance Division Chief, Noelle. Cain becomes shy, responding to Noelle. Meanwhile, Gardy was speechless after seeing Noelle. As Randolph suggested that they head out to the conference room, Gardy remained silent and standing still. Gardy only regained consciousness when he heard Cain asking a favor from him. When Cain called for Gardy's name again, Gardy apologized and explained that he was daydreaming. Alice could no longer come with Cain to the conference room since she had a prior engagement with Lydia. Cain thanked Randolph for his help for the day. Randolph was not expecting Cain to thank him and reminded Cain that a noble person like him mustn't bow his head to his retainers. Cain then shifts his focus towards Noelle, asking her if she had brought the map or the measurement results. Noelle responded that she did. Laying out all of the parchments, Noelle tells Cain that they would be able to form a map of the capital territory. Cain thought that the map was a bit too big and asked Noelle if she had anything about half of the map's size. Noelle tells Cain that they indeed have something that is about the same size, but pointed out to Cain that it won't be entirely accurate. Cain understood, and was really hoping to have a model that is scaled down to about half the size. Since they have nothing else to work with, Cain thought that they'll just have to carefully observe the map first. The meeting was suddenly interrupted by Gardy's appearance. As per Cain's instruction, Gardy has brought a large quantity of earth. When Gardy asked if the amount was okay, Cain responded that it was perfect and thanked Gardy. Curious, Noelle asks what Cain is doing. Unsure of what Cain is about to do as well, Gardy is only certain that Cain is about to create something again. Based on the map from earlier, Cain plans to make a miniature model. First, Cain properly circulates and refines his magic in order to solidify the image of the map. After gathering his magic, Cain then cast his Create Clay spell. Everyone was shocked as Cain was able to recreate the whole town in mere seconds. The town is now taking a 3D form. Gardy was very amazed and mentioned that he expected nothing less from Cain. With the model Cain created, the town can be understood at a glance, making it very convenient. Noelle was still in shock at what she witnessed. Just by looking at the map and glancing at the town for a few hours, Cain was able to reproduce the whole town and scale it down. Since Cain only made it based on imagination, the parts that they didn't check out are missing, making the map a bit lacking. Randolph remained silent and thought a person like Cain, who could create something so sophisticated in an instant, and even reached a level where they can discuss strategies for attacking the town, poses a threat to other influential people. If Cain's talents were to be known by the other families or the royal family, then Cain and the Sanroze family will be facing a big problem. Cain asks Noelle if she can take the model to the desk, as he is certain that it'll be easier to see over there. Randolph continues to observe and is astonished at how Cain continues the conversation as if what he did is merely nothing. Depending on how it is used, it can either be evil or good. Randolph believes that they'd have to keep a close eye on it so that bad people won't take advantage of Cain from that moment forward. Looking at the main street from the miniature model, Cain now has a better view of the street slopes that go gently down towards the castle gate. Cain suggests that they make a gutter, as it would help in getting rid of the accumulated water. Puzzled, Noelle asks Cain what a gutter is. Cain explains that a gutter is a ditch made at the edge of the road, directing the rain that falls on the road to flow into it, stopping puddles from forming. Cain told everyone that he got the idea from a certain book. Listening to Cain, Noelle is very impressed and thinks that he is a very knowledgeable person. Gardy asks Cain what would happen to the water that flows into the gutter. The water is normally being drained into the sewer system and treated, but the town doesn't have a sewer system. Cain asks Noelle how the town's wastewater is currently being treated. Cain was shocked when Noelle tells him that the town's wastewater is just being drained outside the houses. Horrified, Cain did not expect that everyone would use such an unsanitary treatment method. Cain is even more amazed that infectious diseases didn't spread with that kind of system. Cain also realized that it was the reason why the town smelled so bad after visiting it. Noelle shares that in slightly larger towns they are using slime treatment. Hearing about it, the others agreed and started talking about the slime treatment. Cain calls for Noelle's attention, asking what a slime treatment is. Slime treatment meant draining wastewater outside the city walls and storing it in a reservoir. Slimes gather from who knows where whenever they catch wind of garbage or dirty water. The slime would then start cleaning up the filth. Noelle states that it is more accurate to say that the slime absorbs and dissolves anything that's not water rather than just dirt. Surprised by the ways of the other world, Cain never expected to have such a method. Cain never heard of it until now, and in a world where the sewer system is non-existent, the slime treatment is the best one to have. Cain wished that they could implement that type of treatment system in their territory as well. Cain wonders if they could make a hole leading outside Randolph's city walls. Randolph tells Cain that it still depends on how they make it. Randolph says that it is possible if it doesn't affect the defenses. Randolph also pointed out that there's no precedent for them to be able to implement the slime treatment. Cain wonders how far away from the city walls they should build the reservoir to be safe. Noelle tells Cain that it is fine if they don't make it that far away. The slimes themselves are weak monsters, and if they gather too many, the low-ranking adventurers would just take care of them. Cain understands the process, but he kinda feels pitiful to be using it so conveniently to defeat, and asks himself if such a thing is normal in his new world. If the slimes are defeated, the adventurers also receive a reward. Using the existing system of his new world and combining it with the knowledge from his past life, Cain is determined in making the town great. Cain then told everyone that they keep things up and moving with their plan at full speed. Everyone responds yes. As a result of advancing the discussion, the drainage method finally reached a final decision: how to drain rainwater and build a treatment pod for drains. Clay pipes with a diameter of about 30 centimeters are made on both sides of the road, and holes are drilled every few meters to collect rainwater. Next, the gutter will be laid underground from about 20 meters before the castle gate and extended outside the castle. While the material is still underground, a treatment pond will be created 300 meters in advance to treat the slime. Cain's explanation was stopped as his attention was redirected to Alice's drawing, asking her if it is a bird. Alice asks Cain what bird he is talking about, and clarified that what she drew is a wolf. Lydia asks Cain what kind of design he can make. Cain clarifies that as long as it doesn't have too much space in between, anything is fine. Cain asked Lydia and his sister Alice to design the stone paving. Cain thought that the project would go smoothly if he included Alice and Lydia in the project. It was also decided to add a picture to a part of the stone paving to make it visually enjoyable. Wanting to think about the design more, Lydia asks for Cain to give her about 2 or 3 more days. Cain is certain that by assigning the task to Lydia and Alice, the design would come out as gorgeous. And then Cain and the others plan to pave the main street with stone, with road closures for 30 minutes each at noon and in the evening. The reason is that if it's only about 30 minutes, it is easier to get the understanding of the people of the village. However, Cain still needed to do the task quickly so that they don't disrupt everyone's daily life. While Cain is gathering his mana using recycling, Gardy calls for his attention and tells Cain that they've finished drawing the lines. Receiving the signal, Cain then placed his hands onto the ground, chanting his stone spell. The people were amazed to see the road now covered in stone pavement. While the citizens are left confused and curious, Cain suggests to Gardy that they get things going. Step by step, Cain used his stone spell to create the stone pavement pathway. Randolph then informs Cain that it had been 30 minutes already. Cain was surprised as he didn't expect the time to fly by so fast. As Cain stopped working, he received praise from Randolph for a job well done. The citizens were more intrigued by Cain's work, thinking how it was really easy for them to walk on. Even a man thought that if they take the stone path, they won't get dirty with mud even if it rains. Cain left happy seeing the citizens smiling at his work. Cain felt good seeing how happy the citizens were with their project. Cain was now more committed to finishing the stone pavement and told everyone that they must keep working hard that evening as well. And so the construction of the stone pavement plan progressed. At the same time, the drainage construction was also being carried out. As for the stone pavement design, Lydia and Alice's design had finally been decided. It was decided that the stone pavement would be arranged with a grass and flower design, using the full width of the road at 100-meter intervals. The design chosen was lilies, sunflowers, ginkgo leaves, and maple leaves. With that design, Cain believed that the road would look a lot more vibrant. The citizens started to interact with Cain, thanking him for his work again. Seeing Cain working hard made the citizens feel like they also had to work as much as their leader. Others also praised the stone pavement project and how it really helped them in their daily lives. Seeing Cain working on his project again, kids immediately ran towards him, wanting to watch his magic. Seeing Cain cast his stone spell, the kids became intrigued by Cain's magic and started copying him. A woman approached Cain, asking Cain and the others if they wanted to try out their skewer services. Cain happily accepted and thanked the woman. Witnessing everything, Randolph thought how wonderful it was to see how Cain could strengthen their relationship with the people of the territory through the construction project. A month and a half passed by, and Cain finally finished their stone pavement project. Everyone rejoiced, seeing the whole main street now looked much better because of the stone pavement project. A man approached Cain, telling Cain how the road was now much easier to peddle with their goods, a truly big help for merchants, and thanked Cain for it. Cain was now surrounded by the citizens, receiving thanks left and right. To celebrate the success of Cain's project, people all around threw flower petals from above, showering Cain with not only flowers but also words of thanks. Cain could no longer hide his happiness, smiling to everyone around. Cain told himself that he was no chosen one, but that the reason he was leading was because his magic had made everyone become happy. Cain was now glad that he had received earth magic. Seeing the stone pavement project for himself, Luke told his servant that the path was finally finished, and how the people in the territory seemed to look very happy, which Luke found wonderful. Luke had never seen cobblestone roads before, not even in the royal capital. Luke was certain that Cain's project would make waves, and that people would surely come and visit from outside the territory as well. Luke suddenly came barging in, informing everyone of terrible news and that his father-in-law would be coming to visit for an inspection. Lydia, Cain, and Alice, who were just playing cards, were left speechless and puzzled. The Earl of Shields from the neighboring territory is Lydia's father and is also Luke's foster parent, as well as father-in-law. Cain had apparently met the Earl as well when he was around 2 or 3 years old. However, Cain has no recollection of it. Seeing his father's reaction, Cain assumed that Luke does not have a very good relationship with his father-in-law. Visibly stressed, Luke mentions how his father-in-law is a very strict person, and even a slight discourtesy may upset the Earl. Lydia, who is also worried, mentioned how the visit is very sudden, and pointed out the reason is for an inspection of all things. Luke assumes that the Earl may have heard of the rumors about the cobblestones. Though Luke appreciates that the Earl would be coming to visit, he still couldn't help but worry. Cain tells Luke how they will entertain his father-in-law. Luke tells Cain the unfortunate reality, which is that the Sanroze family doesn't have any specialty products or anything. At best, they can have knights go out and hunt some monsters in the surrounding area, and prepare some monster meat. Covering his eyes, Cain had hoped that his father didn't say such a thing with such confidence. Lydia tells Luke that he didn't have to be so modest and that the cobblestone road alone was already enough. Alice thought that if they had some delicious food, they could have entertained their grandfather much better. Cain agrees that the food in the Sanroze family territory is often pretty simple. In Cain's previous world, he was almost always eating convenience store food, which meant that just having home-cooked meals is already a treat itself. Thinking of special cuisines, Cain remembers the book. Cain remembers the hero's cookbook, and how he was sure that seasonings were written in it. Cain then calls for his father and Lydia, telling them that among the recipes in the hero's cookbook, they should try making some delicious dishes that the Margrave of Seals might not know about. Seeing both Luke and Lydia's reactions, Cain wonders if what he had said was off. However, Luke then showed a smile, telling Cain that it is a wonderful idea. Lydia, however, confronts Cain, asking if he really was able to read the hero's book. Cain realized the huge mistake he made. Cain got caught up in pretending that he could read the hero's cookbook. However, Cain is also glad that both Lydia and Luke were happy with his suggestion. With Luke learning that Cain could read the hero's cookbook, it now made sense to see how Cain knew about the abacus and the stone pavement mechanism. Cain wanted to correct his father that some of that knowledge came from his past life but just remained silent. Going back to the main topic, Luke mentions that they don't have much time and suggests dealing with the matter at a later time. Cain tells his father that he will go and get the hero's cookbook. In response, Luke tells Cain that he would be counting on him. Luke then calls for Randolph, asking him to call the head chef. Lloyd, the head chef of the Sanroze household, wanted to confirm if he knew of the seasonings that are being mentioned in the hero's cookbook. Cain responds that he wanted for Lloyd to check what kind of seasonings they have left, to which Lloyd understood the task and followed on. After checking the seasonings and ingredients, as it turned out, there were a few things that had already existed in the world where Cain originally came from, but not in his new world. As for the seasonings, Cain learned that they do not have ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, miso, or mirin. What seasonings they only have are mayonnaise and soy sauce, which Cain finds a relief. As for cooking, Cain is glad that they had potatoes, which is one of the things that Cain truly wanted. For ingredients, Cain was able to confirm that they have potatoes, tomatoes, onion, and garlic. Although they have butter, Cain learned that it is unusable. Lloyd informs Cain that goat butter is quite difficult to obtain. Since they don't have goat butter, that also means that they do not have milk. The territory has some things that could be substituted, like beef, also called wairiburu, pork named uku, and chicken, which is called hoon chicken. Talking to Lloyd, Cain just learned that there are also several types of meat in their world as well. Cain still wondered why the names are slightly similar. Lloyd asks Cain if there's anything else he wanted to ask. Cain responds that there's still one more thing he wanted to ask Lloyd before they finish. Showing Lloyd a paper, Cain asks if there are any dishes in the memo that Lloyd knows how to make. Reading the list of menu items and their ingredients, Lloyd honestly told Cain that he has never heard of or eaten anything except for the ones that are marked with I and W. When Lloyd asked Randolph about the menu, Randolph agreed and pointed out that the dish is similar to a meat dish made by gathering scraps of meat and grilling it. However, Randolph believes that it is just so much that even the hero left a record, and thought that it may be different. Since the mood suddenly became dampened, Luke voiced out a suggestion in trying to make everything. Luke pointed out that they should just judge the food after actually eating it. Lydia intervenes, telling Luke that he is once again suggesting reckless things. Listening to Lydia, Luke starts to question if his suggestion was even good. However, Cain believes that his father is right, since they can't tell what a dish is like until they actually make it. Reading the menu, Lloyd was starting to get worried and feeling the pressure of cooking everything. Cain calls for Lloyd, pleading for his help and saying that the only hope they have is Lloyd. Seeing Cain's straightforward gaze, Lloyd could not force himself to decline the request. Lloyd accepts the task and mentioned that despite his appearance, he has been head chef for many years already. Determined, Lloyd wanted to give it a try. Somehow, Lloyd managed to gather the ingredients. Through trial and error, Lloyd managed to make a full menu. Several days later, Lloyd thanked everyone for waiting and revealed that the dishes from the hero's cookbook were finally complete and asked for them to try it out. Seeing the dishes that Lloyd made, everyone was left speechless and even had their mouths open. Lydia mentioned how she'd never seen such dishes before. Looking at the dishes, Alice commented how it looked incredibly delicious. Luke then told everyone that they should try it out first. Eating her favorite meat, Alice starts to dig in, slicing the meat and eating a piece of it. With just one piece, Alice was immediately commenting how it is a first for her to eat her favorite meat cooked in such a way, and giving it tons of praises. Lydia picks up a dish and commented how it had a rather unusual shape. Upon tasting it, Lydia was surprised and asked if the dish was truly an egg, as it was just too fluffy. Tasting a different dish, Luke asked what the crunchy texture was and how it has a rich flavor of the meat, which he commented how good it was. Just as Cain thought, the home cooking from his past life looks a lot like a feast in his new world. With the dishes served, Cain is certain that they can now entertain their grandfather. Cain thanked Lloyd for the help, to which Lloyd responded how it was an honor for him to cook such incredible dishes. Writing down some adjustments, Cain finalized the menu, which is now potato salad, macaroni salad, hamburger, tonkatsu, fried chicken, and tamagoyaki. Cain announced that the paper would be called the hero's recipe. Meanwhile, the Earl stated how it had been a while since he had seen Lydia and his son-in-law. From what the Earl heard, Luke's territory was changed into a cobblestone or something. Such a thing is something that can only be seen in the royal capital in their country. How Luke was able to manage such a feat, the Earl eagerly wishes to know the secret. The Earl showed a smile as he plans to copy the stone pavement for the development of his territory as well. The Sanroze family remained still, hiding their nervousness. The day had finally come for the arrival of Margrave Shields. For the past month, Cain had spent countless times being forced to eat the same hospitality cuisine. Tensed, Luke then informed his family that their guest had finally arrived. Meeting Margrave Shields, Luke thanked the Earl for taking the trouble to visit them, despite the long journey. Margrave Shields also thanked Luke for coming out and greeting them. Shifting his attention to the kids, the Earl showed them a soft smile. Seeing how the two had grown so much, the Earl first mentioned Cain, stating how he had become a fine young man. Turning to Alice, the Earl also stated that she had already become a proper lady and asked if she would be entering the academy soon. Hearing such a compliment, Alice felt happy and responded by showing proper manners, greeting her grandfather. Meeting again after a long while, Alice told her grandfather that she was looking forward to meeting him. Cain was surprised as he didn't expect his big sister to be able to greet their guest right away. Wanting to do it properly as well, Cain called his grandfather by his name, Margrave Shields, and mentioned that he was now 6 years old. Not expecting such a greeting, the Earl asked Cain why he wasn't addressing his grandfather like Alice did. Shocked, Cain uttered "huh" as he thought that he might have messed up. The Earl assumed that Cain had been feeling lonely. Cain stuttered and tried to explain himself and wondered if he had responded incorrectly. Lydia intervened, asking her father to stop messing around and pointing out how Cain was having a hard time. Earl Margrave laughed and apologized to his daughter. The Earl also noticed that Luke had lost a bit of weight and pointed it out to them. Luke admitted it but reassured the Earl that his physical condition was not a problem while appreciating the Earl's concern. To continue their conversation, Luke asked the Earl to enter their home. Cain remained silent, as he thought that his grandfather would be a much scarier person. Inside a room, Earl Margrave spoke first and told everyone how he guessed that his sudden visit was a bother. The Earl shared how the merchants who came and went in Luke's territory always talked about what a wonderful road the town had. The Earl wanted to see for himself what the buzz was all about. Hearing that, Luke felt honored. Since it had been a while since he had met Lydia, the Earl asked if she had been well. As you can see, Lydia responded. Looking at his daughter, Earl Margrave told her how she was gradually starting to look like her mother, Aisha. The Earl then asked if it was possible that she too visit Aisha soon. Curious, Lydia asked if her mother was doing all right, and said that she had also thought that both of her parents would be visiting them. Earl Margrave explained that they were originally supposed to visit together, but due to an injury her mother had sustained to her foot, she unfortunately had to give up on it. Worried, Lydia asked if her mother was okay and asked for more details as to what had happened. Seeing that he had made his daughter worry too much, Earl Margrave reassured her that it was nothing serious and explained that her mother had merely fallen while tending to the garden at the mansion, and that there was no need for Lydia to worry. With her worry gradually fading, Lydia told her father that she would visit soon. "Please do," Earl Margrave responded. After taking a sip of the tea, the Earl mentioned that he wanted to talk about the main topic. Earl Margrave commented on the road from the town to the mansion, stating that it was quite something. The Earl was reminded just how different it was to see something versus hearing about it. As soon as the Earl's group hit the cobblestones, the vibrations decreased and the speed picked up. The Earl also noticed how the road's surface was differentiated, making it seem easy for carriages to travel on. What pleased the Earl more was how clean the street was. Luke thanked the Earl for his praise and shared that after designating passage areas based on color differences, carriage-to-carriage accidents had also decreased. The cobblestone design was conceived by both Alice and Lydia, Luke said. Luke also shared that the road had become very sanitary because of the people in the territory who had been voluntarily cleaning it. Cain thought that it was just how it was, as due to the cobblestone effect, every day there were more volunteers cleaning, mainly around the shops along Main Street. Before the road had cobblestones, there used to be trash and horse droppings even during the day, but after the cobblestones were added, all of it has completely disappeared. Cain thought that such an act was very great, but he still wondered why the citizens had started cleaning. Cain could only guess that it was because the cobblestones were beautiful, so people wanted to maintain them. However, the truth was that the citizens themselves didn't want Cain's cobblestones, which he had worked hard to make, to get dirty and had started voluntarily cleaning them. "I see," said the Earl, and he asked if it really was that effective. Becoming upfront, Earl Margrave stated how he too wanted to have cobblestones in his town. Luke and Cain had already expected the reason for Earl Margrave's visit. Cain especially had sensed the reason for the Earl's visit, though the request might just sound like an old man's request. When it comes to a conversation between lords, the story changes. Luke understood that if he phrased his response incorrectly, it might mean that he had taken the request for free. What added more to the pressure was that the other party was Luke's foster parent and father-in-law, the Margrave of Shields. Luke knew that he had to respond in a way that would not come out as rude. Cain stayed silent, worried about his father's situation. Luke responded and told the Earl that he understood what his father-in-law was asking. Since the Earl was willing to make a request, Luke promised to do their best to meet the Earl's needs. After Luke responded, another silence seeped in. If it was something on par with the cobblestones in Luke's town, the Earl mentioned that he would like to commission it. The Earl then asked Luke about the conditions and the time frame. Caught off guard, Luke immediately called for Randolph and asked that he bring the item. "Yes, my lord," Randolph responded. Cain felt a slight relief as it looked like things were going well and believed that all the times they had practiced as a family had paid off. After seeing the model, the Earl had nothing but praise. It was then explained to the Earl that when laying the cobblestones they would first have to create a model similar to what was shown. It was also mentioned that the duration would be over 2 months, and the budget would be 500 gold coins. Cain wondered how things would turn out, as the requested amount was 25 times what it had been when he did it. After reading the terms, the Earl told Luke that he understood the details and would like to commission it right away. Except for Alice, everyone else was shocked that the Earl accepted such terms. Seeing their reaction, the Earl asked if there was something wrong. Luke was surprised and responded that there was none, and promised the Earl that they would take care of it right away. From what Cain understood, there would normally be haggling over the price, but he never expected the request to come without any negotiation. Cain expected nothing less from his grandfather and guessed that when there was money, there was power as well. The more Earl Margrave looked at the model, the more magnificent it became. Curious, the Earl asked who had made it. Since the Earl was asking them directly, Cain wondered how much information his grandfather had. Luke then shared that it was Cain who had done the construction using earth magic. The Earl was surprised as he didn't expect that it would be Cain. The Earl was also amazed that it was his very own grandson who had made it. Luke asked the Earl if they could discuss more of the details after dinner. The Earl agreed, as he too believed that hastening anything would waste their efforts. Lydia told her father that they had prepared a room and suggested that he rest for a bit, as she would show him the way. "All right, thanks," said Earl Margrave. Inside the room, Lydia begged her father not to bully Luke too much. Earl Margrave laughed and apologized for his actions, explaining that he merely wanted to tease his son-in-law after not meeting for a while. Earl Margrave also noticed and told Lydia that she had been practicing a lot. Already expecting that her father would see right through her, Lydia told the Earl that her whole family had worked very hard. Meanwhile, Luke felt very exhausted after the negotiations. The Earl told Lydia that he found pleasure in the way her family got along so well, and he also found relief that Luke had grown. Earl Margrave then turned serious and told Lydia that the town model that was shown was dangerous, and asked if there was anyone else who knew the details. Lydia turned serious as well and responded that as far as she knew, it was still just her father. Lydia also had put a gag order on the family. The Earl pointed out that it could be considered treason if handled poorly, and suggested that she be extremely careful. Lydia understood her father's worries and thanked him, appreciating his concern. Changing the topic, the Earl asked Lydia if she would be alright at tonight's dinner party. The Earl remembered that the last one they had was pretty simple. Lydia reassured her father that she was alright and promised that the dinner the Earl would be having tonight was special. Lydia shared with her father the menu for the dinner party, which featured dishes based on the recipes of the hero. Shocked, the Earl asked if what he had heard was the truth, about making dishes based on the hero's recipes. Lydia laughed and told her father that she would share more of the details after dinner. When it was finally time for dinner, the Earl felt marvel, as it was a first for him to see dishes that were from the hero's cookbook. Tasting his first dish, the Earl sliced meat and took a bite. The Earl's eyes widened, wondering what he had just tasted, as it was simply really delicious. Tasting another dish, the Earl was once again full of praise and even commented that it was the best egg dish. Seeing how pleased his father-in-law was, Luke offered to give today's recipe, as he too wanted Aisha to try them as well. Shocked, Earl Margrave asked if he was serious. The Earl told Luke that it was very kind of him and was certain that Aisha would be delighted to taste them. Both Cain and Lloyd were happy, as the hero's recipes were a huge success. In the end, the Earl ate 3 extra servings of the egg dish, and the discussion about the cobblestones also made rapid progress. The next day, the Earl stated that to pave their territory with stone, they would need Cain and the others to stay for several months. Lydia was fine with it and mentioned that she had already told Cain about it. When that happened, Lydia would be accompanying them as well. The Earl felt reassured and guessed that they would need to make various adjustments, after which the Earl asked Lydia to do it after the new year. As for the other conditions, Earl Margrave stated that he would need to discuss them with the bureaucrats and planned to discuss the results when Lydia visited their country. "Understood," Lydia responded. Turning his focus onto Cain, the Earl winked at him and mentioned that he would be counting on him. Yes," said Cain. When the Earl finally took his leave, the Sanroze family waved at them before letting out a sigh of relief. Luke stated that he had managed to get through it without any major faux pas. Seeing her husband's worried look, Lydia guessed that he was tired. Cain thought that his grandfather, Marquis Shields, was a man with a strong personality. The tension dissipated all at once, and Cain now felt sleepy. The cobblestone plan they had agreed on could now proceed smoothly, which made Cain think that he should start practicing his magic and all. For the time being, all Cain wanted was just to take a break. Laying on his bed, Cain thought that napping was the best. Days passed after Marquis Shields returned. As Cain wondered what he would be doing for the day, he decided to visit the archives. Lately, Cain and everyone else had been busy with road maintenance and hospitality preparations, which resulted in him having no time to read the hero's tome at all. With Cain able to free up some time, he wanted to continue reading the book, as he was certain that there were lots of important things written in it about their world and its magic. Hearing noise inside, Cain grew curious and took a peek. What Cain saw was Lydia laughing with their maids. "Oh my," says Lydia after spotting Cain. Lydia reminds Cain that he has to knock before entering a room. Realizing his mistake, Cain apologizes. Lydia shows that it doesn't bother her that much, but asks Cain that he be more careful next time. Seeing how jolly his mother is, Cain asks if something good happened. Still laughing, Lydia asks Cain if it was really that obvious. Lydia shares how she got a letter saying that everyone is coming home for New Year's this year. Checking the letter for himself, Cain learns that it was from their eldest son, Arthur. What was written is that all 3 of the elder siblings, Arthur, Benjamin, and Chris, will be spending New Year's together at the Sanroze household. Although Cain doesn't have any recollection of his elder brothers Arthur and Chris, he is still pleased to hear that they will be coming back. Cain feels excited just thinking that the 4 Sanroze brothers will finally be together. Lydia also mentions that news of the cobblestone roads of the Sanroze territory has reached the royal capital, and that it was also written in the letter. "That's amazing, Cain," says Lydia. Curious, Cain asks Lydia if she knows how many years it has been since all the brothers were together. From what Lydia recalls, Chris hasn't come back even once since entering the academy. Using that as a basis, Lydia believes that it has been 3 years. Since the brothers will be reunited again, Lydia really looks forward to it. Lydia wishes for Chef Lloyd to make them some delicious food again during New Year's. Cain adores Lydia, as he finds her clumsiness and all her other traits cute, making him too wonder if his father had fallen for Lydia in the same way. "Good for you, mother," says Cain. Inside the library, Cain is very eager for the day when his older brothers come back. Before that, Cain wants to keep reading the Book of the Hero. Cain forgets what page he last read. While skipping through the pages, Cain grows curious as he notices that the last few pages are stuck together. Cain is shocked as he didn't notice that there were glasses in the middle. Though the glasses are small, Cain wonders how to use them. All of a sudden, the glasses light up and grow. Cain is amazed as the glasses are now at a wearable size for him. This makes Cain wonder if the glasses have been enchanted with size adjustment magic. The moment Cain puts them on, he is surprised when he sees a screen in front of him. And shown on the screen, it thanked Cain for accepting the gift and now explained how to use the glasses. Cain confirmed his theory when it told him that the glasses were enchanted with the magic of magnification and reduction. When not in use, the glasses shrink. When they are being used, they will grow enough to fit the user's size. The glasses Cain stumbled upon can use the analysis skill. It was explained to Cain how to use the glasses, and that is by putting the object he wanted to analyze in his field of vision and just saying analyze. After chanting, a window will open in front of him, displaying the analysis results of the target object. With the hero's last message, he hoped that it would be of great use to the new owner. Cain was very much grateful to the hero as he now could use the analysis skill after being guided. Cain stopped for a moment as he remembered that he had a magic that required the analysis skill. Both curious and excited, Cain wanted to check it out right away and immediately opened his status. As Cain proceeded to check out his locked skill, it showed again that an advanced skill called analysis is required. Cain became excited as he could investigate the skill with his analysis skill. What made Cain even happier is the thought that he could finally use magical circle magic, a spell which he had given up on. Cain dove through the procedure on how he could use magical circle magic. Firstly, Cain could create magical ink, then analyze magic, transcribe it into a magical circle, and lastly transcribe the magical circle onto something. After figuring out the procedure, Cain immediately went ahead with the first step, and that is creating magical ink. Putting his palms out, Cain imagined that there was an ink bottle on his palm and channeled his magic into it. Trusting himself, Cain managed to complete the first step. Seeing how beautiful the magical ink is, Cain couldn't help but feel pumped up. For the next step, Cain would now have to create a magical circle. But before he continued, he wanted to analyze the magic first. Cain looked puzzled, as he was certain that he needed magic with a skill level of at least 1 to analyze it. Cain saw that the magical array or circle magic is level 1, and he felt frustrated since he knew that if it went down by more than 1 it would become 0, which is basically unusable. From the looks of things, Cain thought that he had no choice but to wait for the skill level to rise gradually. Cain's attention was drawn to the light that was coming from the magical lamp. Seeing the lamp, Cain wondered if he could analyze that as a last resort. When Cain used analysis, he was shocked when multiple windows suddenly appeared. Lots of unknown symbols appeared, making Cain wonder if it was an analysis of magic. Cain also wondered if he was supposed to use Create Magical Array after getting it into such a state. With curiosity getting ahead of him, Cain decided to try casting it. After chanting Create Magical Array, another symbol appeared. This made Cain even more curious, and he wondered if it was the magical circle of the magic lamp. Cain continued to use the analysis skill. Another window hovered over the symbol and stated, "Of daily life magic, the magical circle of light." Cain wondered why he was able to analyze it despite being a low level, and also wondered if light doesn't have a level at all. What made Cain more curious is the daily life magic being stated, as he had no clue what it meant. Not wanting to dwell on that any longer, Cain shifted his focus to things he could do, and that is the light magical circle. Cain decided to try copying it onto a parchment. After preparing the items that he needed, Cain hoped that his experiment would go well. Cain cast Magical Circle Transcription. Cain was caught off guard when the magical ink suddenly shook. Seeing the ink move on its own and creating a magic circle, Cain was nothing but amazed. Now with the magic circle finished, Cain was very happy that it worked and that he could now finally use magical circle magic. Wondering how he was supposed to use the magic circle, Cain once again used analysis. From there, Cain learned that he could use it by touching the magical circle of light from domestic magic and channeling his magic into it. Cain really wanted to thank the hero, as the glasses he gave which allowed Cain to use analysis proved to make things more convenient. Trying the spell out, Cain touched the magical circle and channeled his magic into it. The magic circle gradually vanished and turned into an orb. Cain couldn't hide his excitement and joy at being able to use light magic. Out of nowhere, a window appeared, which confused Cain. When Cain finally noticed a triangular-shaped icon, he clicked it and saw that the magic circle was in there. Seeing the light magic circle, Cain was yet again amazed and wondered if it was possible that he could stock the magic circle he had created. It made Cain want to collect various magic circles. Now, Cain then thought that if he stocked it and transferred it to an item, he would be able to create a sword that emits fire, or a staff of ice, or something similar to that. With many possibilities going through his head, it made Cain think that if his ideas were true, then he could essentially use all kinds of magic. That's the strongest, isn't it? Cain thought. Cain was now even more amazed at what he had stumbled upon. as he now believed that he had opened a door to more possibilities and might possibly even expand further. Having a lot to do is exciting, said Cain. Unable to control his emotions, Cain ended up dancing. Meanwhile, Alice was looking for Cain, as it was almost time for dinner. When Alice finally found Cain, she was too shocked to react upon seeing him dance. Cain became embarrassed when he also saw Alice and froze. When construction of the cobblestone road started, people flocked around as they were very intrigued with how it was being worked on. Using his earth magic stone, Cain easily made the items they needed for the road. The crowd cheered as they all felt amazed seeing Cain's magic, and it didn't matter how many times they had seen it. Grateful, the citizens thanked Cain. Let's do it again, says Cain. Upon hearing his brother's name, Arthur Sanroze, the eldest of the Sanroze children, asks if it is really his brother. Chris Sanroze, the third son of Luke, was also present and was speechless with what he had witnessed. Arthur finally sees his little brother after a long time and guesses that he has grown up a lot. Chris wondered how many years it had been since he last saw Cain. Chris asks Cain to confirm if he still remembered him. Chris shared how their mother instructed him not to disturb Cain, so the two siblings didn't get to play around that much. Now that Cain has all grown up, Chris tells his brother that they should get along moving forward. Stuttering, Cain responded, yes. Cain never expected that his older brother would act in such a way to the point that the two are so close. Benjamin told his two brothers that they are getting a bit too close and that Cain's getting flustered because of them. Arthur understood and suggested that they continue the conversation more at the mansion. Curious, Chris asks Cain how he would be getting back. Cain responded and told Chris that Randolph would be coming and would be picking him up soon. Cain shared with his brothers how he was just making cobblestones with Gardy and the others. Chris was amazed when he heard Cain mention what he was doing. Chris remembered that when he was about Cain's age, he was only practicing his swordsmanship. Looking closer at the stones, Arthur asks to confirm if Cain really made all of the cobblestones. Intrigued, Benjamin knocked on the stones and was surprised with what Cain had made. Benjamin knew from their mother's letter all about the cobblestones. What surprised Benjamin is that Cain only learned how to use magic a year ago, but he can now do such an advanced spell. Just as Benjamin had thought, his younger brother is truly interesting. Remembering the training lessons he had with Benjamin, Cain felt nervous and thought that the presence of Rasetsu is being embodied by his brother. Aside from the cobblestones, Arthur was also pleased to see that the people of the domain are happy and wondered if they had always been that lively. Because of what Cain achieved, all of his elder brothers were amazed and proud of him, even calling him a genius. Cain was starting to get even more embarrassed because of his brothers pouring him with praise. Seeing how Cain now looked troubled, Randolph tells the older brothers that if they praise Cain more, then he would pass out. Randolph calls the three young masters and suggests that they just leave it at that. Arthur, Benjamin, and Chris responded in sync, "Stop calling me young master already." Everyone in the town cheered and laughed after seeing the siblings. A townsfolk mentioned that the two siblings are still as close as ever. Curious, a girl asked if the three over there are siblings. The people around continued to welcome the siblings. Cain was amazed to see how popular his siblings are. Randolph tells everyone that it is time for them to head back to the mansion and asks that they board the carriage. When everyone finally returned, Lydia was the first to greet them, welcoming them back. Randolph informs the children that his master is waiting for them in the reception room. Alice approaches Benjamin and welcomes him back to their home. Benjamin responded, telling Alice that he is now back and how she looked a bit taller than she was a year before. Really? Alice responded. Arthur joins and was surprised to see how big Alice had grown after a long time. He also praises Alice, telling her how beautiful she had become since he last saw her. Chris also approaches Alice and tells her how she has become more mature. Being poured with praise, Alice felt elated. Seeing Alice's reaction, Cain thought about how both his mother and sister looked happy. Luke welcomes his children and also felt great that they've returned. Luke guessed that everyone is all tired from their long journey and told them that they can first rest. During their joyous conversation, Cain sees how his father looked really happy as well and how he really loves his family and their closeness. After dinner, Luke called the three of Cain's brothers to the study and it looked like they were going to discuss something important. Now that Cain has some free time, he decided to read the Book of the Hero in the library. Reading through the pages of the book, it made Cain really want to build a sewer system. Cain also thought about how it is necessary to make the toilets flushable and also expand the castle walls. After that, Cain wondered if baths should be next on the agenda. Cain heard a knock and asked if someone was outside. Cain saw that it was his brother, Chris, who called out to him. "Oh, you're here," says Chris. Cain asks Chris if there is something he can do for him. Chris mentions how his brothers and the others are calling for him, so he would have to leave right away, in which he asks Cain if he could visit his room. Cain agreed but wondered what was going on so suddenly. Looking around, Chris noticed that there are tons of books around and was amazed that Cain reads all of them. Chris shares how he wasn't really good at reading books, so he rarely reads. Chris also shares how he tried going to the library but it still didn't pan out. Cain tells Chris that he will clean up right away and hopes that it would not be a scary story. Outside, Chris informs Arthur that he has now brought Cain. Cain didn't expect how private his brother is, as siblings aren't even allowed to enter without permission. Hearing his brothers outside, Arthur gives them permission to enter. "Excuse me," say Cain and Chris. Inside the room, Arthur is sitting down while Benjamin is standing. Arthur was glad that Cain agreed to come and explain that he called him because he wanted to talk to him along with his other siblings. Arthur thought that it was still too early, but Benjamin reassured him that it was okay. Curious, Cain asked what was going on. Arthur assumes that Cain is already aware that their family is a Viscount family and asks if he is correct. Cain nodded in response. Arthur mentions that there are 4 boys in their family, which includes Cain. Arthur tells Cain that he will be frank and asks if he wants to become the legitimate heir. Cain was caught off guard since his brother is asking something outrageous out of the blue. The legitimate heir is the one who becomes the successor to the Lord. In other words, the brothers are asking Cain, the 4th son, straight out if he wanted to become the Lord. Cain was surprised by the sudden question, but his answer had already been decided. Cain tells Arthur that he didn't want to become the next Lord. Cain clarified that if he can help his elder brother Arthur even a little with the development of the territory, then he wouldn't wish for anything more. Benjamin smiles and tells Arthur, "See, just like I said." Arthur's frustration welled up and he asked why everyone was giving him the same answer. Chris answers first and explains that when he sees their father, he is always surrounded by documents every day and it looks tough. Chris also mentioned that they can't go anywhere if they become Lord, and it is very boring. The brothers had the same thought. Arthur didn't want to think about it longer, but since Cain is already present, he wanted to ask again. Arthur wanted to make the Sanroze family prosperous enough to support all of his siblings. Arthur stood up and surprised Cain when he suddenly bowed in front of him, asking that Cain lend his strength. Both Chris and Benjamin placed their hands on their chests as they accepted Arthur's request. Confused, Cain decided to put his hand on his chest and also agreed to help. After sharing a laugh, Arthur mentions that it would all be for the formalities. Arthur suggests that for tonight they should celebrate the development of their territory as brothers and discuss each of their recent situations, especially about her and so on, says Arthur. The brothers were surprised when Arthur showed them a bunch of snacks. Arthur suggests that they start the conversation with Chris. Surprised, Chris asks why it was him first. Benjamin made it clear that nothing is going on with him. Going back in time after dinner while Cain was still in the library, Luke thanks everyone for their reports. Luke wanted to ask one more favor from them. With what everyone knows, Luke pointed out that after the baptism ceremony, Cain seemed a little different. Luke guessed that it is because of some skill, or maybe his knowledge has increased, as Cain seemed much more mature. Lydia nodded in agreement. Benjamin felt the same thing when they were training intensively, so during everyone's stay, Luke wanted everyone to keep a close eye on Cain. Luke also wanted everyone to teach Cain, who tends to be reckless, how to protect himself. Since the request involves their youngest brother, all siblings are in agreement. Benjamin thought that Cain is very intriguing, as he finds himself wanting to teach his young brother all sorts of magic. But Cain is still only 6 years old, so they needed to be careful. Inside his room, Benjamin was writing something on a paper when he heard a knock on his door. After giving permission to enter, Cain entered and told him how he wanted to discuss something with him. "Discuss something?" Benjamin asks. Nervous, Cain explains that he has various ideas to improve the quality of life in the territory and would like to get his big brother Benjamin's advice. Intrigued, Benjamin agrees and asks Cain to share his ideas first. Cain mentioned that there are 2 things he would like to create. The first is a bathhouse, and the second is a sewer system. Puzzled, Benjamin asks Cain if he is talking about filling a large barrel with hot water to bathe in. Cain responded yes and clarified that a bathhouse is like that but with an even larger barrel that can fit over a dozen people at once. Cain believes that if they can make it available, then life in the country would become more hygienic and the number of illnesses will decrease. As for the other request, Cain explained that the sewer system is for rainwater and wastewater from toilets and kitchens. Cain plans to create a network of underground pipes in every town to flow through, treat the wastewater outside the territory, and then return it to the rivers. Cain also believes that it will improve the town's sanitary environment and reduce illness. Benjamin was really interested and believes that if all are completed, the people in the territory will be delighted, and he is in agreement with Cain that his ideas are wonderful. Since Cain's ideas are wonderful, Benjamin finds it hard to believe that Cain could come up with such ideas at the age of 6. Nervous, Cain explains that he learned about it from the pictures drawn in the hero's tome and not something he came up with. Benjamin doesn't want to press the conversation any further and tells Cain that they will leave it at that. Cain smiles as he thinks that the hero's tome isn't just a source of useful knowledge but also useful for making excuses. Since Cain already knows so much, Benjamin asks what Cain really wanted to hear from him. Cain mentions that it is about the bathhouse, as they are going to need a large quantity of hot water. Cain knows that his big brother has mastered fire magic, so he wanted to know if there's a spell that can make hot water and wishes to learn and use it. Benjamin tells Cain that there isn't a fire magic spell that makes hot water. However, there is a spell that can raise or lower the temperature of water or objects. Benjamin asks Cain if showing him would be enough. Cain agrees and tells Benjamin that he plans on using his magical circle magic to turn it into a magical circle and create a magical tool. Confusion was written all over Benjamin's face, and he asked Cain if he could really do that with magical circle magic. When Cain responded that it is possible, Benjamin was both intrigued and curious, as he had never thought that something so outrageous was possible, and he even asked if there were any restrictions or something. as otherwise all the magic in the world Cain could use or have others use. Cain expected nothing less from his brother, as he had already noticed the usefulness of his magical circle magic. Cain admits that there are limitations, and that they can only turn into a magical circle up to the minus of the magic. Activating it requires 10 times the original magical energy. Benjamin understands and believes that it would take quite a bit of magical energy, 10 times as much. Curious, Benjamin asks Cain how much magical energy he has now. Since it was Benjamin who was asking him, Cain decides to share everything. The amount of magical energy Cain has is infinite. Hearing that, Benjamin was first in shock, but later laughed so hard and mentioned how Cain is truly something else. Benjamin apologizes for his behavior and thanks him for being honest and sharing, and also believes that Cain is keeping such information a secret from everyone else. Yes, of course, Cain responded. Cain's growth was much faster than Benjamin had expected, and he believes that they must act carefully about the situation. Getting back on the topic, Benjamin shared that a magic that changes temperature is a level 2 magic, and asked Cain if he is okay with that. Cain responded, telling Benjamin that the level is insufficient, which is quite unfortunate. Benjamin asks if it means that his magical circle magic is at a lower level. Benjamin wondered and asked Cain how he confirmed the magical circle activation. Cain explained that it is the daily life magic which somehow managed to become a magical circle. From what Cain knows, there is no daily life magic that changes temperature. With Benjamin's knowledge, daily life magic is fine as there is hot water. This shocked Cain. Benjamin explained that anyone can learn daily life magic at the church, in which he suggested to Cain that he consult the father next time and just go learn it. In front of the church, Cain never expected that there is a magic that directs in such a way. After a long time of not visiting the church, both Cain and Alice finally paid a visit after consulting with his father about daily life magic. Since normal magic is so commonplace in their world, Cain kind of guessed that he may be the only one who didn't know. Excited, Alice suggests to Cain that they enter the church already. Alice tagged along because of what his parents suggested to finalize their travel preparations. Lydia tells Cain that they had already taken the measurements for the travel outfit Cain will wear when they visit Count Seal's frontier domain. Lydia believes that it is about to be finished and suggests that Cain should go and have the final adjustments done. The two kids went to the tailor together and were ordered to put on and take off the clothes, which exhausted Cain. Eager to find out more, Cain enters the church. The two were then greeted by an older woman, thanking them for visiting the church. "Nice to meet you," says Cain. The woman responded and told Cain that she had heard the story, asking them to follow along. Looking around, Cain saw an image of goddess Guardia. After guiding the kids, the woman then showed them a stone tablet. The woman explained that by using the stone tablet, Cain will learn daily life magic. The priest asks Cain which daily life magic he would like to learn for the day. Excited, Cain tells the priest that he wants to learn hot water, but if there are other useful ones, he would also like to learn them as well. If possible, Cain also wishes to learn more about the history of daily life magic. "I suppose just a little," says the priest. The priest starts explaining to Cain the origins of daily life magic, which was conceived and spread by the hero. The hero sought a type of magic that would make daily life a bit more convenient even for those without magical skills. From what was passed down, it is said that the hero created it with that in mind. Cain finally learns another vital piece of information, that the hero created daily life magic itself. The priest continues and shares that it was only the hero at first who was able to grant daily life magic. An anecdote became famous and widely heard, in which it is said that the hero temporarily fled because so many people visited them every day. The hero decided to create the stone tablet, and it became possible for the church to grant daily life magic. That is also how the church was enabled to earn an income. Cain was just amazed that a person reincarnated from Japan created the magic. What is more impressive is that the very magic itself is still helping lots of people to this day. The total number of daily life magic created by the hero is 10. However, the number that has been passed down to the present is only 9. The priest then shows Cain the types of daily life magic. The priest further explains that the number that can be memorized can be known by placing one's hand on the acquisition stone tablet and asks Cain if he would like to try. "Yes," says Cain. Seeing the kid so excited, the priest instructs Cain to place his hand on a small pillar. The moment Cain rests his hands, the stone tablet emits a bright light. When the lights finally stop, the priest informs Cain that he can memorize up to 4 daily life magic spells since the light flashed 4 times. Without any hesitation, Cain asks for the magic that grants him hot water, loop, and light. As for the remaining one, Cain wants to memorize it when he wants to learn another daily life magic in the future. The priest understands and grants Cain's wishes. The priest instructs Cain again to keep his hand firmly placed on the pillar as she then starts chanting. Cain was shocked when he saw a light coming from the pillar where his hands are currently placed. When the light vanishes, the priest informs Cain that he has successfully mastered it and that he may check his status board later. Alice approaches the priest, also wanting to memorize daily life magic. "Yes, of course," says the priest. Laying in his bed, Cain pondered about the bathhouse he plans on building. Closing his eyes, Cain wondered what he needed to do first. The bathhouse Cain went to before he got reincarnated required that, upon going under the curtain, he first had to take off his shoes. After that, they would have to undress in the changing room and then go into the bath area. The people inside would use a shower to wash their bodies, and one would also need wash tubs and stools as well. Since soap is already being made in the territory, Cain no longer has to worry about that. He also realized that they would be needing towels. As for the sauna, Cain guessed that it is something he has to worry about for another time. After explaining everything, Cain received permission from his father regarding where to put the bathhouse. They decided to build it near the back entrance of the mansion. Since Benjamin is out hunting with their father, the task of building will just be worked on by him and Gardy. Cain asks Gardy's opinion on how big he thinks the bathhouse should be. If the bathhouse is too small, the people won't be able to relax, but if it's also too big, then filling it with hot water will be a pain. Gardy was still in the dark about what they are trying to build, so he asks Cain what a bathhouse is exactly. Cain was in shock, as he remembered that in their world, everybody uses cleanup to get their bodies clean. That also means that there are people who don't know what a bath is. Cain admits that since they already have magic, there is not much point in going out of their way to build a bathhouse. However, there are also people who don't have the ability to use cleanup, which may cause them trouble. What concerned Cain especially are the people who can't afford to make donations to the church, which also means that they may not be able to receive daily life magic. The maid spoke to Cain and Alice, telling them that it's time for bed, and that they will be using cleanup to get them nice and clean before heading to bed. The maid touches Cain's hands and uses cleanup. Cain was surprised that it was done within seconds. The maid then turns to Alice, as it was her turn next. What frustrates Cain is that the cleanup spell only cleans the surface of the body and that it does not remove the tiredness from inside one's body. What Cain wants is to soak in a hot bath and slowly wash away the day's fatigue, which is why Cain is determined to build a bathhouse no matter what it takes. After explaining to Gardy what a bathhouse is, Gardy thought that it would be best to make the bathhouse big enough for about 3 adults to bathe together. When the madam will bathe, Gardy imagines that a maid would go in with her and help out. Cain also imagines it and thinks that Gardy may be correct. Cain likes Gardy's suggestion and decides that they will be making the place big enough for 3 people to fit in. Cain thought that they would be needing windows as well, and asks Gardy if he knows a place where they can have them made. Thinking about windows, Gardy tells Cain honestly that he wasn't sure himself, so he will ask Randolph instead.
Okay, please do,
Cain responded. Since they also need to decide what to do about the roof, Cain wondered if he should imagine stone walls with hollow spaces inside. Cain also thought of another idea, which is building solid stone walls and using delete afterward to remove the inside. If Cain does not think about the order, then he may not be able to build the bathhouse. When Cain tried it before, he couldn't get the stone walls to connect properly if he made them on top of the training wall. Cain knew that he had to think it through carefully before starting construction. Gardy arrives and apologizes to Cain for making him wait, mentioning that he brought Randolph with him. Since Noelle was also in the mansion, Gardy also called her. Noelle greets Cain as it had been a while. From what Noelle heard about the situation, she came hoping that she could be of some help to Cain. Cain felt reassured and thanked Noelle. Going back to the topic, Randolph asks Cain what kind of windows he had in mind. Cain's goal is ventilation, so they don't need to open very wide, and he also wants the type where people can't see from the outside. Cain gave an example, which is a window where you can push the lower part from the inside to open. Hearing Cain out, Randolph believes that there is something like that, but it will be on a bit of a larger side. Randolph tells Cain that he can have a few delivered to the mansion as early as tomorrow. Please do, says Cain. Cain also asks Randolph to bring several different sizes and styles, which Randolph agrees to. Cain turns to Noelle as he wants her advice on building the bathhouse. Cain informs Noelle that he wants the bathhouse to have a bathtub and a place to wash their bodies, plus a changing room to undress in and a separate room to store extra hot water, which amounts to 3 areas. Frustrated, Cain believes that he can hollow out the inside of the walls to create the spaces, but he can't get the inner walls and the bathtub to stay in place. Noelle asks Cain, trying to confirm with him if he really needs to make everything at once with magic. Noelle pointed out that Cain can make whatever he can with magic, and for the rest she suggests having the stoneworkers and carpenters guilds build it. Cain was shocked, as he then turned to Gardy and the two stared at each other. Cain realized that Noelle was correct. Cain admitted that everything was difficult because he was trying to do everything with magic. Cain could just make the walls and bathtub with magic and then have the roof and other parts built normally. Cain thanks Noelle for giving him the idea. Not at all. It is an honor to be of service, Noelle responded. With the plan all set, Cain suggests that they start building everything except for the roof. Using his earth magic, Cain creates the stone wall. With the wall ready, Cain's next task was to open the doors and windows. Before doing that, Cain circulates his mana properly and splits it into several small casts. To create the windows and doors, Cain deletes parts of the walls. Seeing the results, Randolph was very impressed and mentioned how he expected nothing less from Cain. Noelle too was amazed, seeing that Cain did it all at once. Gardy asks Cain what he will do about the floor, and if he is going to pave it with stone. Cain plans to make a low stone paving and turn it into a stone floor. Cain will tilt the floor in the bath area a little so the water can drain. Setting his plan in motion, Cain asks for everybody to watch. Using Stonewall, Cain shows everyone what he had envisioned: a sloped stone-paved floor. Gardy saw the finished floor and praised Cain for doing an excellent job. Cain checks the walls and was quite disappointed to see a few gaps despite them being well-shaped. Seeing parts of the wall that are a bit rough, Cain guessed that he should tidy it up a bit more. Looking at Cain, Noel knew that he had already reached a level where he could cut down the effort and time needed to build a house by a huge amount, and yet he still aimed for even greater heights. Noel's thoughts about Cain were that he is truly a driven person. Excited, Cain now plans on building the bathtub next, using stone walls first and then delete. Cain successfully created a bathtub. Everyone was surprised at how pristine it looked. Gardy asks Cain if that is where they will be getting in. Cain responded, yeah, and shared how glad he is that he managed to do it somehow with earth magic. Pleased with the step they achieved, Noel tells Cain that the next step would be filling it with hot water. That's right, says Cain. Cain's bright smile immediately vanished when he realized that he never thought about how to supply the water. Seeing Cain's reaction, Noel asks Cain if there was a problem. Cain's worries about the water supply were now getting over his head as he wondered where he would get it. Cain started regretting the location where he built the bathhouse and thought that he should have built it closer to the well. Left with no other choice, Cain thought of just making something like a water pipe. Overhearing Cain, Noel asks him what a water pipe is. Cain realized that a water pipe is something that everyone still has no knowledge of. Cain explains it to Noel, informing her that it is a pipe that lets water flow through it. Cain pointed out how it would be a lot of work to haul water over and over every time they use the bathhouse. Cain wants to make a pipe that carries water from the well to the bathhouse to cut down on all the effort. What also worries Cain is that if he creates clay and uses it for a long time, the dirt might start mixing into the water. Hearing Cain's explanation, the others too felt troubled. After taking some time to think, Cain remembered a spell and thought that he might be able to use it. Earth press, a skill that applies pressure to the affected surface, smoothing and hardening it. If Cain were to surround the soil with it, it would be similar to concrete. Cain is certain that it may work somehow. Calling everyone's attention, Cain asks for their help once again. Cain explains the plan. Firstly, he had Randolph inform his father that he wanted to lay a water pipe from the well to the bathhouse, and once he gets permission, they will resume work. During the process, Cain and everyone encountered a few failures along the way, but Noel worked out how to give it the proper slope and solve the problem. Cain expected nothing less from the maintenance bureau. Though the process took quite a bit of time, Cain and the others finally managed to get the pipe into shape. Cain thanks everyone for their help. Noel and the others were glad that they could be of help to Cain. Cain and the others laughed as he pointed out how they are now all covered in mud. After installing the pipe, Cain asks Gardy if they just need to fill the inside with water. Cain responded yeah, but told Gardy that he wanted to fill it about halfway since pumping water is hard work, and he thought that they should take turns and do their best. Everyone took turns working the pump until the bathtub was filled to about halfway with water. Since they were all exhausted, they took a short break. Cain made some simple chairs with magic. Sipping his drink, Cain thought that if they do not come up with a better way, pumping the water every day will be very rough for them. After filling the tub halfway, Randolph asks Cain what he intends to do next. Cain plans on using hot water and adding boiling water until it reaches a good temperature. Cain then told everyone to watch as he showed his newly gained ability, hot water. Cain smiled since it was his first time seeing the spell being used and thought how handy life magic is. Putting his hand in the water, Cain felt that it was still not that warm, so he decided to add more hot water. With the water in the tub stopping at about 3/4 full, Cain thought that it should be good enough. Cain let out a breather as the work was pretty tiring. Cain stated that around 1 part hot to 2 parts cold seemed right for the tub. Calling Gardy, Randolph, and Noel's names, he asks their thoughts about the tub. Speechless at first, Noel spoke and asked Cain if that is what he called a bath. Gardy mentions how all the steam coming from the water makes it look like it is really hot. After putting their own hands in the water, Noel realized that it isn't too hot or too cold and is just about right. Gardy agreed and stated that they could stay in the water for a long time at that temperature. Listening to how pleased everyone was, Cain suggested that they go ahead and enjoy the water a little first. Placing their feet in the water, Noel tells Cain how it felt wonderful. Noel was surprised that her whole body felt warm even though it was only her feet in the water. Gardy felt how the water was really taking his fatigue away. Seeing how everyone liked it, Cain is very pleased. Since everyone is already happy, Cain thought about how everyone should be happy while having a proper bath. Scratching his head, Cain later realized that he hadn't thought at all about how to drain the water. Seeing how glum Cain looked, Noel asks if there was something wrong. Cain apologized to everyone and then had them help him make a drain pipe. Surprised, Noel tells Cain to stop apologizing so much. Gardy agrees with Noel and tells Cain that they can just work hard together again. By the time they finished, the sun had set and it was already dark. "It's done," says Cain after seeing the drain pipe work. Cain was terribly exhausted and mentioned how he had just soaked his feet to recover from the fatigue, and then went and tired himself out again making the drain pipe. He thought how the previous world had everything prepared for them. Cain is very determined that for tomorrow he will soak in a proper bath. Cain turns to everyone, telling them that he will be counting on them again tomorrow. Both Gardy and Noel were all in, while Randolph tells Cain that it is now time for his dinner. At the dining table, both Arthur and Chris looked so down. Cain couldn't believe how glum his brothers looked just from desk work. It made Cain wonder how brutal a lord's job is. Seeing both Arthur and Chris's expressions, Lydia asks that they pull themselves together. Lydia tells Arthur that the workload he handled for the day is still considered light. Lydia then turns to Chris, pointing it out to him that once he has a girlfriend, he will have to be the one to take the lead. She then asked both how they can be so worn out from just that much. Lydia makes Alice a perfect example of proper manners, pointing out that she looked full of energy. Cain was shocked to see Alice not showing any sign of being tired from studying. Chris couldn't hide how exhausted he is from visiting 10 shops in a day without a break. Listening to his brother, Cain realized that Chris went out making the rounds to greet people in the territory. Meanwhile, the only thing that is on Cain's mind is finishing the bath as fast as possible. The next morning, a group of men visited Cain and greeted him. Noel introduces the men as the craftsmen from the Stoneworkers Guild and the Carpenters Guild. Cain greeted the men and told them that he will be counting on them. Getting right to the main objective, Cain wants the men to put a roof, doors, and windows on the bathhouse. Cain also wishes for them to fix the bathtub in place inside. Seeing how intrigued the workers are with the tub, Cain asks the foreman how long he thinks the work would take. Giving a thumbs up, the man tells Cain that they will be finished before sunset. Really, Cain responded. The craftsmen immediately split up, brought in lumber and plaster, and started working. Since Cain was called by the workers a few times while they worked, he gave them instructions each time. Around lunchtime, the roof's framework was finished. Watching the roof rapidly take shape, Cain can't help but feel excited. The foreman approaches Cain, asking for permission to ask him a question. Concerned, Cain asked if there was something missing or something that did not fit together properly. The man responded that there was no problem at all and mentioned how even among veteran craftsmen there are very few who can build a room with such a foundation. What the foreman is trying to say to Cain is that the bathhouse they are building might end up being a bit cold. The foreman also mentioned that it would affect the changing room, in which he suggested that they install a stove there. Cain was surprised to hear about a stove. Cain becomes excited since he had never seen one before. Cain agrees with the foreman and mentioned that if they do not have a stove, then it will be too cold for the people inside to enjoy taking a bath. Cain asks the foreman if he can add one as well. The foreman had no problem with it and could even prepare one right away. Showing a little concern, Cain asks if it is expensive. If the stove is indeed expensive, Cain suggested that they let him see the shape so he could make one himself. The foreman stops Cain and tells him that the budget he provided for the facility is more than enough. In return, the foreman asks Cain if he can build a barrier or enclosure around the stone. Cain does not see any problem with that and immediately makes one using earth magic. The foreman heard stories about Cain, but what he never expected was that Cain could create something like that in an instant. After that, Cain used magic to dry the plaster and also created extra stools and washtubs to use in the bathhouse. Noel praises the worker for being able to carry many at once. "Nah, this is nothing," the worker responded. The work continued after lunch, and by the time the sun began to set, the roof was finished. Cain cheered with everyone as the bathhouse was now complete. Cain could immediately tell the difference between the bathhouse before and after the work was done. Noel congratulates Cain and says that she is still very much impressed with his earth magic. Confused, Cain asks Noel what she is talking about and points out that it was all thanks to everyone's help. Showing a bright smile, Cain thanks everyone, saying that if it weren't for them, then they wouldn't have the best bathhouse. After that, Cain got everything ready for tonight's grand opening. He set out the towels and high-quality soap needed when using the bath, along with baskets for putting clothes in. Cain used the life magic light to place several light sources. At the same time, he explained to the maids how to use the bath. Calling Cain's name, Lydia heard about the bathhouse from the maids. Cain was pleased with his mother calling out her name. Lydia thought that it was wonderful, as she couldn't believe that Cain was able to create something so amazing. Lydia also heard from Randolph that the bathhouse was successfully completed thanks to Cain's leadership and magic, which she finds truly marvelous. Cain clarified that it wasn't just him, but that it was all thanks to everyone working together. Lydia wondered if it would be alright for her to use the bathhouse as well. Cain had no problem with it and allowed his mother to use it. Overhearing the conversation, Alice appeared and told Cain that she too wants to use it. Surprised, Cain also allowed Alice to use it. Happy, Alice suggested that Cain join them in taking a bath with Lydia. When Lydia agreed, Cain was surprised. When Benjamin finally returned, he was welcomed by Lydia. Surprised, Lydia asks if the two hunted all the guinea fowl by themselves. From what Benjamin remembered, they had hunted down a total of 15. Luke added that they also brought back a wily boar. Amazed, Lydia was now really looking forward to the New Year's feast. Cain smiles as he is certain that this year will be more lively now that his brothers are present. In Cain's world, he is going to turn 7. After the showing of the hunt spoils, it was time to present the new bathhouse. Everyone was surprised as Arthur first spoke and mentioned how amazed he was to see a bathhouse for the first time. Chris also pointed out how even in the royal capital there's no facility like that. Arthur asks Cain if that is the bathtub that he mentioned. With the tub being so large, Arthur believes that all the brothers could get in together. Although Benjamin already heard from Cain, what he never expected was that Cain would build the whole building. Benjamin could clearly tell that Cain is beyond what a 6-year-old should be capable of. Alice's attention was drawn to the tools that Cain made. The stools and tubs Cain made out of clay were decent, but he plans to eventually replace them with wooden ones made by craftsmen. Cain also wanted to set up some containers so people could drink milk and such. But Cain was told by Lydia that drinking in the bath while naked is very improper. Since they are nobles, Cain can't help but just follow along. Cain showed a disappointed look for not being able to drink in the bathhouse. Wondering who gets the first bath, Cain guesses that it would be his father. But what Cain didn't expect was that Luke passed and suggested that Lydia should go in first. Happy, Lydia asks Luke if he is sure. Luke pointed out how Lydia is the one who was looking forward to it the most. Cain smiles and thinks about how kind his father is. Happily accepting the offer, Lydia pushes Cain in and calls Alice as they will go in together. Cain becomes nervous, as he didn't think that he would actually go in with them. Now with their towels only on them, Lydia comments on how the changing room is lively. Thanks to the stove that was added, the whole room is now warm. With the baskets available, their clothes will not be mixed together. Cain expresses how glad he is that Lydia liked it. Alice boasts to Cain how she finished changing first. From what Cain remembered, it felt like Alice forced her clothes off pretty aggressively. Cain told the two that once they enter the bath area, they start with rinsing. Using the tub, they will scoop up some hot water, then slowly pour it over themselves starting from their feet. After that, Cain instructed them to pour it over the rest of their bodies. Lydia followed Cain's instructions and poured the hot water over their feet and bodies. But as for Alice, she immediately poured it over her head, which made her scream due to the water being so hot. Cain then told her that if she dumps it over her head right away, her body will be shocked. Handing over a bar of soap, Cain informed them that they would be washing their hair next. After rinsing their hair 2 or 3 times, they would then have to lather up the soap and wash. Cain also informed them that they would be using the foam to really rub and massage their hair well. For the last step, they would have to rinse off the foam and then they would be finished. Lydia stops Cain and tells him that the back of his head isn't properly lathered, then offers to wash it for him. Cain thought about how nice it felt and how his mother's touch was so gentle and kind. Alice calls for Cain's attention, asking for him to look at what she had made with her hair. Cain was very impressed with the horns Alice had made. Shocked, Alice becomes annoyed and tells Cain that they weren't horns but were rabbit ears. Cain was caught off guard as he really couldn't tell if they were rabbit ears. From what Cain understands, his older sister has a very unique aesthetic. After that, Lydia also washed her hair and they all laughed together at each other's fluffy, foamy heads. What Cain saw was that washing hair for Lydia and Alice, who both had long hair, was a bit of a problem. In normal circumstances, the maids would wash it for them, but Lydia wanted to wash it all by herself while Cain teaches her, since it is a special occasion. So they ended up washing it themselves. Thanks to that, they all could enjoy taking a fun bath together as a family. Cain then suggests that they wash their bodies next. Since Lydia couldn't reach her back, she wondered what she would have to do. Alice goes behind her, offering to wash her back for her. Grateful, Lydia thanks Alice. Alice calls Cain, asking for him to wash her back as well. "Yes, ma'am," says Cain. When Cain was told to turn around so they could switch, he was shocked as he had finally experienced the whole family taking turns washing each other's backs. Cain always wanted to try it in his previous life, but never could. He never imagined that he would instead experience it in the other world. Alice asks Cain if he really wanted for her to wash him that much. Teasing Cain, Alice proceeds to scrub his back even more to get him extra clean. After rinsing off the soap, the three then entered the tub. Relieved, Lydia mentioned how soaking in hot water felt wonderful. Alice too mentioned how her legs felt relaxed since she was able to stretch them out. Cain smiles as he very much understands that the pleasant time they are experiencing is something they cannot get from magic. Cain confirms that the bathhouse was definitely the right choice to build. After stepping out of the bathhouse, Lydia thanks Luke for waiting. Luke responded and told his wife that he didn't make him wait at all, and asked her opinion about the bathhouse. Lydia was all smiles, stating that it felt better than what she imagined. She also pointed out how her hair and body feel cleaner than usual and made her feel refreshed. Alice also shared how they took turns washing each other's backs. Chris thought that it sounded fun. Intrigued, Benjamin asks how they were able to do that, to which Alice then told him how they were able to do it. Excited, Luke told his sons that they too should go and enjoy the bathhouse as well. "Have a nice time, dear," says Lydia. Seeing how close his brothers are, Cain is certain that his brothers would have fun washing each other's backs. However, the opposite happened, as Chris felt pain when Benjamin scrubbed his back too hard. Chris turned and told Benjamin that he is about to peel his skin off. Benjamin tells Chris to stop whining and pointed out how he could always scrub him down with ice. Frightened, Chris asks in response why he wouldn't admit that he is the one at fault. Arthur later realized that in their current position, his father would end up washing his back. As Arthur muttered about his back to his father, Luke spoke up and told Arthur that he does not need to hold back. Luke stated that washing the back of his grown-up eldest son is its own kind of joy. Hearing that, Arthur showed a smile. Luke then told Arthur how proud he is, as he has become strong and dependable. Passing on the torch, Luke says that he will be counting on him to look after the territory. "Yes, sir," Arthur responded. Hearing the others shouting at each other, Luke then scolded them and asked how long they plan on bickering at each other. Cain was walking the hall when he thought of the dinner they had with the roast guinea fowl. After a hot bath to wash away the fatigue and delicious food to top it all off, what Cain could only think is that the bathhouse was a huge success. The maids approached Cain, asking him if it's really alright for the servants to also use the bathhouse. "Of course," says Cain, as he shared that they are also using it as a trial run before spreading bathhouses throughout the territory, and suggested that they do not hesitate to use it. In return, Cain wanted the servants to report anything they notice after using it. The servants understood the condition and thanked Cain for allowing them to use it. Cain hoped that the maids would end up liking it. Cain heard a familiar voice that said that everyone looked so happy. When he turned, Cain saw that it was Lala. Expecting nothing less from Cain, Lala heard that he had gone and made something amazing again. Cain always felt uncomfortable around Lala since she approached without a sound. Lala told Cain that he will be going shopping tomorrow and shared that Randolph has ordered her to be his guide. "Yeah," Cain responded. Cain remembered that he is going to buy something he has been wanting for a while. From what Randolph knows, Lala is knowledgeable about the area and believes that she is very much suited to be Cain's guide. From what Cain remembered, Lala is very familiar with the merchant associations and guilds. Lala responded that she is and shared how she was under their care a little in the past, so she has some connections. Cain asks what Lala means when she says that she was under the merchant's care. Lala did not answer the question and just told Cain that she looks forward to accompanying him tomorrow. Arriving at the market, Cain becomes excited when he sees how lively the place is. Cain hears a woman's voice ordering her men to put the goods in the area next door. The worker responds, calling the woman Monica, and asks what they should do with the other items and where to place the merchandise. After giving out instructions, Monica's attention is drawn elsewhere when she hears her name being called. Lala approaches Monica, asking her if she has a moment. Monica is surprised to see that the person who called her is Lala. Monica knows that today isn't a delivery day, so she immediately asks her if she didn't come to the market just to bring bad news or anything. Lala reassures Monica that it isn't the case and mentions that what she brought may be good news for her. Lala tells Monica that she brought Lord Cain with her today. Puzzled, Monica asks if the boy is the same noble that Lala serves. Lala responds, telling Monica that she is correct. Lala proceeds to introduce Cain to Monica, the fourth son of the Sanroze Viscount family. Cain remains quiet, as he can tell how Lala is pretty pleased with what she is doing. Pulling her dress and bowing down, Monica greets Cain and feels honored that the son of the Viscount has visited her Pedro company. Monica then introduces herself and tells Cain that she is pleased to make his acquaintance. Cain responds, telling Monica that it is nice meeting her and how the pleasure is all his. Caught off guard, Monica thanks Cain for politely greeting someone like her. Monica is just overjoyed that Cain, being called Lord Cobblestone, has visited her shop. Cain looks very puzzled, wondering what Monica means by Lord Cobblestone. Curious, Cain asks Lala about it. Lala is surprised that Cain doesn't know about it. Lala reveals that all the commoners in the territory now respectfully call Cain Lord Cobblestone. Cain is just shocked, as he still can't believe that the townsfolk call him that. Seeing Cain's reaction, Monica asks if there is something wrong. Cain composes himself and tells Monica that there is no problem. Cain apologizes to Monica for bothering her after seeing how busy she is. From what Cain has heard from Lala, if he were to visit the Pedro company, then he would be able to find what he is looking for. "My, did she now?" says Monica, as she then tells Cain that Pedro company will gladly do everything possible to prepare whatever Cain is seeking. Cain becomes nervous when Monica moves her face much closer to his and asks him what exactly he is looking for. Cain asks Monica if she has oil extracted from plants, small black seeds, as well as bird eggs. From what Monica remembers in their inventory, the oil they recently stocked is made from beans. As for the black seeds and eggs, they have several kinds and suggest that Cain take a look at them. Hoping that Cain wouldn't mind her asking, Monica is very curious and asks Cain what he intends to do with the items he is looking for. Cain reveals the secret and shares that he is planning to make sweets for his sister Alice. "How lovely," says Monica. The truth is that the sweets Cain is making are to apologize for sneaking some roasted sweet potatoes the other day. As for the ingredients for such sweets, Monica asks Cain to wait for a moment as she will look for them herself. Bringing the items Cain asked for, Cain is overjoyed, since Monica really brought everything together. Since the request came from Cain himself, Monica states that it is just an easy task. Monica tells Cain that they will arrange to have their purchases delivered to his mansion. Cain thinks that it is a great idea and asks Monica that she do that. Cain is half resigned, as he thought that he might not find everything. Cain starts to wonder who Lala truly is to have connections with such a big company. Cain thanks Monica for today. Monica responds and tells Cain that he should visit them again. Cain calls Lala's attention and tells her that he wants to buy magic stones and asks where he can get those. Lala is now starting to get curious, since Cain is asking for something rather suspicious. If Cain wants a good variety and quantity, Lala tells Cain that the best option would be the Adventurers Guild. Cain becomes excited just hearing that they will be visiting the classic Adventurers Guild. Cain asks himself if he really is going to get caught up in the usual template trouble. Arriving at the Adventurers Guild, Cain immediately sees adventurers inside. Cain calls Lala's attention, telling her that he wishes to try something and asks that she come in a little after him. Cain's excitement is instantly snuffed out when Lala refuses to comply with his request. Lala asks Cain as to who will protect him if she were to follow his request. If Cain were to get hurt, then it would be Lala who would get an earful from Randolph. Cain learns that Lala is more afraid of Randolph getting mad than of him getting hurt. Hearing Cain's response, Lala couldn't respond right away, since Cain kind of hit the nail on that one. Cain reassures Lala that it is fine, as he also understands what she feels. Cain points out that Randolph's expression doesn't change, but when he's angry, the pressure is terrifying. Lala admits that she is a little afraid of Randolph, but she also clarifies that it doesn't mean that she isn't worried about Cain too. Cain smiles as he tells Lala that she is very honest. Lala retorts, telling Cain that he himself hardly acts like a noble. Lala points out to Cain how he puts himself in danger on purpose. Cain becomes embarrassed, since what Lala said is exactly what his mother had told him. After sharing a moment of joy, Cain suggests another option, and that is that Lala would go in before him and watch from by the wall. If things look dangerous, then Lala will come and help him. After giving it some thought, Lala finally agrees, but tells Cain that if anything happens, then she will rush over right away. Since Lala already entered, it is now time for Cain to enter as well. Entering the guild, Cain feels joyous after seeing the typical adventurers. Cain turns as he is then greeted by an elf. The elf asks Cain if he visited the guild to make a request. Cain is just in shock when he finally sees an elf. Stating his business, Cain tells the receptionist that he wishes to buy some magic stones and asks if it's possible for him to see what they have. As the elf is about to point out to Cain the location where their magic stones are, Cain is suddenly pulled by one of the adventurers. Calling the elf Racina, the man asks that she forget about the brat and keep them company instead. Cain is surprised at how fast it happens, that he has finally experienced the classic harassed at the Adventurers Guild pattern. A bald adventurer states that they just got back from finishing a quest, so they are exhausted. Racina's cheerful and friendly expression vanishes. After apologizing to Cain, Racina opens her jacket and pulls out knives, which she then throws at the returning adventurers. With his shoe getting hit, the bald adventurer can only step back and fall over onto his butt. Annoyed, the leader is about to confront Racina when he stops, as he notices a blade is now pointed at his neck. The leader is asked if he has any idea who he is acting up in front of. Lala moves in and tells the adventurer that the kid is none other than the fourth son of their lord, Cain Sanroze. Lala then asks the adventurer if he intends to throw their lives away by behaving like that towards a noble's son. Cain is speechless, as he is also surprised that Lala got behind them in an instant. Cain later realizes that the situation is turning for the worse, as he can see that Lala's eyes are serious and that he needs to stop her now. Cain calls Lala's attention and tells her that he showed up out of nowhere as well, and asks if she could let go of the adventurer if it isn't that much of a trouble. Lala calms down and follows Cain's wish. Lala then turns to the adventurers and tells them that they are very lucky to have been generously forgiven by Cain. The adventurers apologize for the trouble and leave after being told by Lala to leave. Cain then learns that Lala had told Racina that he was coming. Lala doesn't deny it, as she also mentions that it is her job to remove as much danger around Cain as possible. Cain apologizes to Racina for causing trouble. His curiosity ended up causing trouble for the adventurers. Racina tells Cain that there is no need for him to apologize and explains that those men had been acting a bit rough lately and believes that what they experienced could be considered as a good lesson for them. Please don't worry about it. Returning to their topic earlier, Racina tells Cain that the magic stones are over there and that he can freely look at them. After finishing their business at the Adventurers Guild, Lala is now carrying a large bag. Lala is glad that Cain is able to buy the magic stones that he wanted. Yeah, Cain responds. Curious, Cain asks Lala what kind of position Racina has in the Adventurers Guild, and if she is that important. Lala is very impressed at how sharp Cain is and shares how Racina is a former A-rank adventurer and a veteran receptionist. Lala states that in some ways Racina has more influence than the guildmaster himself. Cain is surprised and guesses that he really has to be careful around Racina. Cain asks Lala what exactly she is. Lala smiles and tells Cain that she is just a maid. I see, Cain responds. At first, Cain thought that Lala was a little scary, but after sharing time with her today, he realizes something about her. Cain then tells Lala that his heart starts pounding in an adventurer's sense when he is with her, and he finds it very fun. Lala's face turns red, as she doesn't expect that Cain would say such a thing. Cain asks if something is wrong. Lala responds and states how she is just startled, as what Cain said is a little misleading. Extending his hand, Cain tells Lala that he will be counting on her moving forward. Lala shakes Cain's hand and responds, "Yes." Once they return back home, Cain wants them to make sweets. "I'm looking forward to it," says Lala. Cain shares how he will make a bit extra so Lala can deliver some to Monica and Racina as well. Cain also tells Lala that he will prepare some for her. As the end of the year draws near, the Sanroze territory grows sharply colder. The few remaining grasses are now frosted white. At the Sanroze Manor, the cooks receive orders to roast the guinea fowl soon or they wouldn't be done in time. Having no time to waste, the chefs boil the willy boar ribs. Switching to the salad team, they are asked if they are now done beating the eggs for the mayonnaise. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to the cooks, Cain is just hiding and observing their work. The preparations for the New Year's banquet are steadily underway. Cain visits the kitchen as he is curious as to how things are going. Instead of joyous cooking, what Cain sees is like a battlefield. Cain sees multiple monster bodies and guesses that those will be the meat dishes. Cain is just simply amazed by his father and siblings for hunting down so many monsters. Randolph's name is called, and he is asked how many barrels of alcohol are prepared for tonight's event. When the chef asks if it is 3 barrels, Randolph responds and tells the chef that they do not have that many. However, 2 whole barrels are provided by the master, says Randolph, and he asks the chef to drink and savor it slowly. When Randolph and the chef notice Cain's presence, they ask him what he is doing in the kitchen. Cain tells the two that he is just wondering how the recipe from before turned out. The chef smiles and tells Cain that there is no need for him to worry, as everything is now ready. "Good," says Cain. For tonight's event, Cain has the cook try making a new recipe from his previous life. With the cooks now all gathered, Cain is asked if the things he brought are the ingredients for his recipe. Cain confirms that they are and informs them that they will be making 2 kinds of sweets. The sweets they will be making are intended for Alice. After thinking about the type of sweet Alice would like, Cain decides that they will be making a sweet potato dish, and the second is a castella. Intrigued, the chef asks Cain if the food he mentioned also came from the hero's book. Having trouble explaining the truth, Cain just tells the chefs that it is something like that. In order to stop the chefs from asking more questions, Cain states that they don't have much time and suggests that they start now. For the candied sweet potato, Cain instructs the chefs to wash the sweet potatoes and then cut them into sticks. After cutting the potatoes, they will then be fried in oil until golden brown, then coated with a honey sauce and sprinkled with what look like the sesame seeds that they bought. As for the castella, a purification spell will be cast on 10 eggs, and then they will be beaten and mixed into the flour, along with honey and a little oil. For the next step, the batter will be poured into a deep iron pan and placed inside an oven. Once the top has browned, cover it and bake it through. When the chef finally finishes the sweet, he informs Cain about it. Cain is just surprised at how great the smell is. When they taste the food for the first time, the cooks are shocked at how delicious it is. The food has a crispy texture, which makes it irresistible. What also makes the food wonderful is the flavor of the sesame that they added. Tasting the food as well, Cain is certain that his sister would love it, and how he can't wait for her to have it. During the event, Luke calls everyone's attention and personally thanks them for all the hard work they put into preparing. Luke is just glad that once again they can welcome the New Year's banquet with no one missing. For tonight, Luke asks that everyone eat, drink, and enjoy themselves to their heart's content. Raising his glass, Luke says, "Cheers!" Everyone responds to Luke with bright smiles on their faces. Not just the servants in the mansion, but also the workers have a piece of food and enjoy the drinks. Having a full plate for himself, Cain thinks that everything looks good, which leads to him piling a lot onto his own plate. While looking around to look for a seat, Cain's attention is drawn to Alice, who is calling out for him. When Cain approaches Alice, he is asked if the dessert is the new recipe he had mentioned to her. Tasting the dessert, Alice has nothing but praise for it. Cain smiles as he feels glad that Alice likes them. "Thank you so much," says Cain. When Cain brings up the time he secretly ate the roasted sweet potatoes, Alice stops him and tells him that she will let it slide, and that Cain is now forgiven. With her plate now empty, Alice feels that it isn't enough and decides to get another serving of the castella and candied sweet potato. Cain tells Alice that there are plenty of other tasty dishes that are prepared, and that it would be a waste if Alice were to fill up her stomach with only sweets. Alice realizes Cain's point and decides to just get one more of the sweets and then enjoy the other dishes. Lydia asks Cain if he is eating plenty. Before responding to Lydia, Cain's attention is drawn to Lydia's plate, which is full of sweet potatoes. Lydia praises Cain's new recipe, telling him that they are very delicious. Lydia hears that the sweets are a recipe that Cain had taught them, and she then asks if that is the truth. Nervous, Cain responds, "Yes, that's wonderful," says Lydia, as she bets that more merchants will come to their territory just to taste their new food. Arthur approaches both Lydia and Cain, as it looks like he has been looking for them for some time. Arthur then shares his problem with Lydia, as he states that after working for 2 to 3 days, he realizes that the workload is just brutal. This makes Arthur suggest hiring more clerks. Puzzled, Lydia asks Arthur what he is talking about and points out that the work Arthur handles is still not much. Lydia shares that the usual amount of work that Luke handles is about 1.5 times that amount. Although things are starting to get better thanks to Cain's help, Lydia states that they still do not have the leeway to hire more clerks yet. Lydia tells Arthur that when he returns, if he does not bring 2 or 3 people with him, then he would certainly collapse from overwork. Hearing their conversation, Cain thinks that it is a harsh dose of reality. Since he is no longer part of the conversation, Cain leaves and tells the two that he will get some more food. Meanwhile, the servants express how pleased they are when Benjamin uses his magic to cool down the drinks, which they then thank Benjamin for. Cain approaches Benjamin and asks him what he is doing. Benjamin mentions that the ale is way too warm, so he cools it down with magic. The cooled drinks have become pretty popular, so Benjamin just keeps going at it since he finds it quite fun. When Benjamin tells Cain that he can't drink the ale yet, Cain shows a disappointed look, as he really wants to try alcohol. The celebration continues as everyone is now drinking the cold ale. Cain feels grateful that he is able to spend a joyous year with everyone. When Cain hears his name being called by Chris, he responds, "I'm coming." Cain hopes that next year he can spend it again with everyone. Seeing the sunrise, Cain feels the difference from the other morning, as the temperature is even colder. Cain feels the sharp air that comes during the new year during his daily run. Cain prays to the guardian god, greeting it a happy new year, and thanking it for watching over his family and everyone in the territory last year. He hopes that it will continue to watch over them in the coming year. Raising his fist, Cain becomes determined to do his best again this year. On New Year's, the only real visitors the Sanroze family has are merchants from the town, coming to wish Luke a happy new year. They do not have any shrine visit of the sort. In their world, even in the new year, life goes on as usual. Now that everything around them is back to normal, Cain decides to show everyone something. After being called by Cain, Randolph asks why they are all being called to the bathhouse so suddenly. Cain responds, telling Randolph that there is something he wants everyone to be able to use. A servant sees an odd object and asks Cain what it is. Cain doesn't give any explanation as to what it is and just instructs the servant to point at it and say light. Nervous, the servant makes it clear to him that she does not have the magic spell light. Cain reassures her that it is fine and to just give it a try. When the servant says light, she is shocked when the lamp becomes very bright. Randolph too is surprised, but wonders how it is possible. Cain explains that the tool lets anyone cast magic just by saying the word. He then asks another servant to try saying hot water to the faucet. When the servant follows Cain's instructions, hot water immediately comes out of the faucet. The servants flock to the tub as they are just truly amazed that real hot water comes out of it. What still puzzles the servants is that they are able to use the type of life magic that they do not know. Randolph is very impressed and tells Cain that he has again made something amazing. A servant asks Cain if he made them all by himself. The tools Cain created have magic powers stored in the magic stones, so if they speak the spell, then anyone can use that magic. Before the banquet, Cain had Benjamin teach him magic inscription, which he then applied, that very same magic, to make the items. Unfortunately, Cain can't explain it further to others since he too finds it very complicated. In order to avoid further questions, Cain just tells the servants that he made it with everyone's help. The servants become more impressed with the Sanroze siblings. Meanwhile, Benjamin, who hears what Cain says, thinks that he only taught Cain magic and that he had nothing to do with the tools themselves. Cain is relieved that everyone can now use the bathhouse even when he is not around. There is also another reason why Cain made those. Everyone is excited when they see a beautiful carriage. Lydia asks if they're going to ride the carriage to her father's client. The family is heading out to handle a job commissioned by the Shield Border Marquis. Cain remembers that the Marquis wanted for the cobblestones to be worked on right away. Chris states how he never knew that they had a fancy carriage. Arthur tells Cain that they don't, and that they only borrowed the carriage for the trip to the Shield Border territory. Arthur also points out how they are nowhere near wealthy enough to buy and maintain extra carriages. Chris is shocked, as he never thought that their house was that tight on money. Arthur clarifies that their family isn't going to collapse immediately, but if they do nothing, then it won't be long before they can no longer keep going. Arthur understands the situation after helping Luke with his work. Arthur also makes it clear that both their parents are doing their best, stating how Luke and Lydia have been trying all sorts of policies, but the results will only show up years from now. Arthur tells Chris that he too must be aware of his role as the son of the Sanroze Lord. Chris told Arthur that after he graduates from the academy and spends a few years in the Royal Knights, he wishes to come back to the Sanroze territory and start a family. He then asks Arthur to make sure that the territory would be prosperous by then. Arthur responded by shouting and told Chris that he will be helping with that as well. While the two siblings continue their conversation, Benjamin approaches Lala, handing over the bang and flash grenades she asked for. He explains that both activate 2 seconds after magic is channeled into the grenades. Benjamin also shared how he turned the grenades a bit stronger than usual to his taste, and asked that she be careful. After thanking Benjamin, Lala also states how she hopes that she would never be able to use them. "I will definitely protect everyone," Lala added. Benjamin responded by telling Lala that he will be counting on her. Looking at Cain from outside of the carriage, Gardy asks that he be careful on the road. Cain responded that he will and thanks Gardy for thinking about him. The coachman then told everyone to board the carriage. Seeing his family leaving, Luke hopes that they take care of themselves and that they have a safe trip. "We're off," says Alice. Cain realized that he was about to take his first adventure in the other world, since they were told that they would be stopping at various places along the way. Cain had no clue what new things were waiting for him in his journey. Cain plans to take everything he can and use it to help the territory even more. During their trip, Cain felt uncomfortable as the carriage was just shaking too much. What amazes Cain more is how Lydia could still read without getting bothered by the rocking. Cain knew that the fault lies mostly on the road, making the trip very awful. If the road were properly maintained, Cain is certain that the ride would be smoother, and they could go even faster. Cain thought of an idea and plans on sitting up front and checking the road conditions from the driver's seat. When Cain asks for permission during one of their rest stops, he is immediately shut down by Lydia. She points out that in the cold season, if Cain is not properly prepared to sit in the driver's seat for long, then he would certainly catch a cold. "I cannot allow that," Lydia added. Lala interrupts the two and suggests letting Cain sit at the back of the covered wagon so that Cain could still see the road. Lala also reassures Lydia that the spot will be much warmer than the driver's seat. If Cain were to get cold, Lydia also mentioned that Cain can wrap himself in camping blankets. Seeing Cain's expression, Lydia felt that she had no other choice but to agree, as she felt her worries are going away a little after listening to Lala. However, Lydia sets a condition, and that is only until the next rest stop. Grateful, Cain then thanks his mother. Going to the back, the first thing Lydia noticed was how large the luggage they were bringing was. Cain also thought that with that much luggage, a space for 2 people would be barely enough for them to fit in. This made Cain feel that he is forcing things through just for his own selfish reasons. Lala tells Cain that there's nothing for him to worry about, as she shared that she felt lonely on her own and is glad that she is able to spend some time together with Cain. Lala asks if they should get up on the cargo bed and offers Cain to climb up. After climbing up, Cain turns and asks Lala how she will be able to get up. Lala responds by telling Cain that there is no need for him to be concerned. With one jump, Lala was able to get onto the carriage despite it being very high. Lala then apologizes for showing an unseemly display. After showing a smile, Lala suggests that they now take a seat. Cain was very impressed with Lala and thought that her physical ability is insane for being able to jump to such a height like it's nothing. Since the temperature is starting to get cold, Lala took out a blanket and wrapped them both with it. Since Cain can't move at all, he turns to Lala and asks what she is exactly doing. Lala can't help herself since she finds Cain very cute, and just explains that she is merely keeping Cain warm so that he does not catch a cold. Cain was surprised when he heard that Lala almost called him cute. Sensing vibrations, Lala tells Cain that the carriage is moving again. Determined to make Cain nice and warm, Lala asks that Cain be relaxed and watch the road. However, with his current position, Cain couldn't force himself to be relaxed. The family finally arrived at Tonga Village, the place where they will be staying. Hearing her name being called, Lydia turns and sees a group of people approaching them. The village chief, Banan, thanks Lydia for coming such a long way. Though they only have a little to offer, Banan asks that they make themselves comfortable. The villagers flock to the Sanroze family, as it was a first for them to see the lords of the territory. The first thing Cain noticed when he saw the villagers was how tense they looked. Lydia thanked the villagers for their hospitality and shared that they will only stay for a short while. Banan offers to guide Lydia and the others to the inn and asks that they follow along. "Thank you," says Lydia. To ease the villagers' tension in an instant, Cain has nothing but respect for his mother's capabilities. Cain finally sees the bed and guesses that he will be staying in that room for the night. Both Lydia and Alice will be getting the largest room, a double. Cain lays down and notes how the bed is so fluffy. Outside his room, Lala knocks and asks if she could have a moment with him. After receiving permission, Lala enters and apologizes for disturbing Cain while he is resting. Lala was instructed by Lydia to accompany Cain on a walk around the village. Cain was surprised, as he never thought that he would be permitted to look around the village. Lala shared that Lydia expected Cain to get bored after a day in the carriage, and thought of letting him out if he is not that tired. Hearing that, Cain becomes excited and suggests that they leave now. Looking around the village, Lala tells Cain all about Tonga Village and how its main industry is similar to other villages, which is agriculture. But since it sits along the highway, many traveling merchants and travelers stop by, so its shops are well stocked, and it even has an inn and a tavern. Cain thought that it was pretty pointless to go to a tavern when he can't even drink. He suggested that they check out the general store first. Cain becomes excited after seeing all sorts of things inside. The store owner suggests that Cain take his time to look around. When Cain saw an odd item, he asked the shopkeeper what it was. The shopkeeper remembered that a traveling merchant from far away brought it to his store about 2 years ago. The item smelled sweet, but it had no taste, so he really does not know how to use it. Since he got tricked by the smell into buying it, the shopkeeper really has nothing to do with it, and has just left the item sitting there ever since he had bought it. Picking up the item, Cain recognizes it and is certain that they are vanilla beans. Cain thought of an idea and believes that it could come in handy when making new dishes. When Cain asks the price, the shopkeeper gives it for 1 silver coin since it is the leftover stock. After purchasing the item, Cain left the general store. Curious, Lala asks Cain what exactly he bought. Cain explains that it is a type of spice, and with that, he might be able to make a new kind of dessert. "A new dessert, you say," says Lala. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted when Cain and Lala heard a commotion. A boy promises to do the work properly to the very end, in which he asks that he get paid in advance. Cain was shocked, as the first thing he thought of was that it is a scam. A group of men responded, telling the kid if that is how he behaves when he is the one asking for a favor. The man also asked the kid what guarantee he has that the kid won't run off with the money. The kid reassures the worker that he will never do that, but the man is firm and tells the kid that he will not trust the word of a drifter. The kid shares that his sister has a fever and that he just needs the money to buy medicine and food. "Not my problem," says the man. The man then reminded the boy how he promised to till the entire field by tomorrow, in which the man even prepared a place for him to stay. What angers the man is that the boy hasn't even finished half of it yet, and asks how he will be paying for incomplete work. The boy couldn't respond right away and muttered how they would have finished within the timeline if his sister was just well enough. The man then told the kid that he is just full of excuses, saying something that he couldn't do from the start. Cain finally intervened and explained how he just happened to overhear and became curious. Though in reality, what caught Cain's eye is the cow monster. Cain asks if it was not much of a problem that they explained the situation to him. Summing it all up, the boy and his sister are monster tamers who handle cow-like monsters, traveling from village to village, taking on field-tilling jobs to make a living. The two arrived at the village 3 days ago, accepted a job to till the fields by tomorrow, but the sister fell ill, so the boy tried to negotiate for advance payment. Cain asks if the men could pay the kids their wages if he tills the field in their place. The men were shocked with what they heard, and mentioned how it is possible, but they pointed out to Cain that the field is quite large. The men are certain that even for Cain, doing it alone is impossible. After reassuring the men that it is fine, he assumed that the deal had been set. Using his earth magic earth dig, Cain easily moved the soil in the field. The men were shocked after seeing Cain's magic and how he tilled the field in an instant. "Impressive as always, Lord Cain," says Lala. The man asks Cain if he is some kind of great mage. Cain responded and told the man that he is just an ordinary earth mage. However, the men believe that there is nothing ordinary about what Cain just did. Since the job is already done, Cain asks that the men pay the boy's wage. Handing over the money, the man tells the kid to make sure to thank Cain properly. After parting ways with the farmers, Cain turns to the boy and suggests that they introduce themselves properly now. Cain introduces himself as the 4th son of the Sanroze family. Nervous, the boy introduces himself as Tony, a monster tamer. Cain is certain that he is much younger than Tony and advises him to talk normally. Tony agrees and thanks Cain for his help. When Cain started talking about the cow monster, he immediately sensed an ominous presence coming from Lala. Tony tells Cain that his monster species is called a cow bull, and its name is Hanako. Cain asks for a favor from Tony, in which Tony becomes defensive and makes it clear that he is not giving Hanako up for a noble. Cain clarifies that it is not his intention and asks if Hanako produces any milk. Surprised by such a question, Tony responded that Hanako does, but he does not recommend drinking it. Tony explains that cow bull milk gives normal people diarrhea, but he did milk Hanako just in case. After receiving the milk, Cain believes that it will be fine once they use magic on it. Using the stone and his purification spell, Cain believes that the milk now will not upset anyone's stomach and asks if Lala wishes to try it. However, Lala is not that willing, as she still finds the milk quite scary. However, after both she and Cain tasted it, the two pretty much had the same reaction, stating how delicious it was. Now obtaining drinkable milk from a cow bull, Cain believes that he can now create a new recipe with it. Inside the kitchen, both Cain and Lala are busy preparing a new dish. The host of the inn informs Lydia that Cain asked to borrow the kitchen as soon as they got back. This made Lydia wonder what it was all about. From Alice's experience, she believes that Cain is making another new dessert. In Cain's new recipe, he would have to mix flour, eggs, and purified milk into a batter, spread the batter out thinly, and cook it. Cain then had Lala slice apples thinly, then add a little sugar and pan-fry them into sautéed apples. In the final step, place a cooked sheet of batter on a plate and fold it around the sautéed apples. When Cain was finally finished, he introduced the new dish to everyone as the sautéed apple crepes. Alice found comfort that her guess was right about Cain making a new dessert, and also praised it for being tasty. Tasting the crepe, Lydia also gave praise and asked Cain if he made it. Cain just smiled and felt happy that the food he made was well liked. Going to the real subject, Cain informed Lydia that the dessert uses cow bull milk. Cain explained to Lydia about Tony and the cow bull, and that with Hanako's milk, not only desserts like the crepes but also rare butter and many new dishes could be made. Cain asks Lydia if it is possible that they put them into House Sanroze. Since Lydia didn't give a response right away, Cain thought that his proposition may be too sudden. Lydia finally gives her answer, agreeing with Cain in hiring the kids. Lydia first clarified that she would decide for certain after meeting the kids herself. Lydia turns to Lala, asking her if she had no issues with the kids. Lala shares her opinion about how she thought the kids looked very devoted to family, but what bothers her is Tony's cheekiness. But Lala is willing to overlook it since the cow bull will be bringing new types of desserts and dishes to the territory, making it grow even more. Cain suggests that they go meet the siblings before they set off tomorrow. The next day, when Lydia visited the barn where Tony and his sister were staying, Tony and his sister Nana came out to greet them. Nana's fever had gone down thanks to the fast-acting medicine Tony bought yesterday. Nana thanked Cain over and over for his help. Lydia took a liking to Nana's polite manners right away, and when Lydia mentioned that she plans on hiring the siblings, Nana was surprised but accepted the offer gladly. It seemed the siblings had been looking for a place to settle down. With a letter to Randolph and some travel funds, the siblings were ordered to go to the manor 2 days later under escort from the patrol knights. Receiving a new opportunity, Nana tells Tony to bow his head properly. When it was time for Lydia and her family to leave, Benon thanked Lydia and hoped that they would take care. Lydia also thanks Benon for everything they did for them. Tony comes running towards the carriage, calling out Cain's name. Benon becomes mad, telling Tony to watch his mouth and reminding him that he is speaking to a lord. Tony thanks Cain for his help and hopes that he takes care in his journey. Cain responded that he will, and told him that they will be seeing each other again at the manor. In Tonga Village, Cain got to befriend a monster tamer named Tony. Once they return home, Cain plans on making some desserts with Hanako's milk.